Hello and welcome to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Explore our playlist for more captivating novels, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new audiobook. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 41, Wind and Cloud in the East China Sea. Wu Chen was really annoyed. The other party was too disrespectful. The other end of the phone was obviously stunned for a moment and then understood who the strange number was, and said in a flustered tone, "That, Mr. Wu, you may have misunderstood, I am not. It's very late, I'm going to rest. Call me if you need anything, and don't send anyone to follow me." Wu Chen hung up without waiting for the other party to say anything. He clutched his phone and looked out the window into the alley again, then closed the curtains. In fact, Wu Chen knew very well that the other party would not do any harm to him. Because now, the person who sent someone to follow and monitor him can be said to be his own. It's Wang Zhuangyuan. Wu Chen drove away his white Lamborghini yesterday, met him at Li Ruotai's place this morning, and returned the car keys to him. From Wang Zhuangyuan's point of view, he didn't even know Wu Chen. But he still sent people to follow and monitor Wu Chen. Wu Chen could deduce why. Because he was Li Ruobing's man, Donghai Mr. Li Ruotai's brother-in-law. Moreover, Li Ruobing was pregnant with his child. At present, there were 4 big bosses in Donghai. In addition to Zhao Guaizi and Wang Zhuangyuan, there were also Yan Zhu from Baikeng and Yuan Erbao from the development zone. These 4 people control more than 90% of the entertainment and leisure businesses in the East China Sea, and were involved in quarries, logistics and other businesses. Only in the 1990s of the last century, Donghai was dominated by one family in the isle and had a role that could be called the godfather of Donghai, because it was chaotic at that time. After the new century, those of the older generation died, those who were imprisoned, and those who survived were laundered and went ashore one after another. Although the transformation of the old generation were soon filled by new forces, because the times have changed, the environment changed, and the legal environment changed, it was very difficult for Donghai to have the kind of godfather figure who could act lawlessly and have absolute dominance. The more developed the place, the harder it was for such people to appear. Donghai's city developed. Although it was incomparable with several top super first-tier cities in China, it was still a first-tier big city with a population of more than 10 million. However, as long as it is a bar, KTV, bathing and sauna business, it would inevitably involve relationships, contacts, and things on the road. So there were now these 4 big bosses, Zhao Guaizi, Wang Zhuangyuan, Yan Zhu, and Yuan Erbao. Among them, Yan Zhu was the oldest and the most experienced. People in the Taoist circle called him Master Yan Zhu, and he was over 50 this year. Zhao Guaizi followed by Yuan Erbao, both of whom were under 50 years old. As for Wang Zhuangyuan, he was only 33 years old this year. If you looked closely at the vicissitudes of the Donghai in the past 20 years, you will find an astonishing fact, that was, Wang Zhuangyuan was very scary. The speed of his rise was astonishing. At the age of 18, he was the champion of science in the Donghai College entrance examination. In order to avenge his oppressed parents, he stabbed someone and was imprisoned for 3 years. After he was released from prison, he came out to play. He used to be an extremely outstanding student, a genius-level figure, a proud son of heaven, and a child of other people's family. He also believed that knowledge could change fate, but the accident during the summer vacation when he was 18 changed everything. Not only completely changed the trajectory of his life, but also distorted his values. So he came out to hang out. 12 years have passed, and Wang Zhuangyuan had successfully caught up with the veteran forces represented by Zhao Guaizi, Yan Zhu, Yuan Erbao, etc., and was 20 or 30 years younger than them, yet he sat on an equal footing with them. No money, no background, no contacts either. But Wang Zhuangyuan did it. Why did it work? This has to mention Wang Zhuangyuan's self-motivation. He was not only extremely smart but also very, very good at drilling. 6 years ago, in July, Li Ruotai, who was only 20 years old, was still studying in college and was about to enter his junior year, came to the East China Sea with an astronomical sum of money and terrifying family connections. He chose a site, build a building. According to the plan at the time, it would take at least 2 years from the completion of construction to the completion of decoration of the building, regardless of the cost to catch up with the construction speed. And 2 years later, Li Ruotai just graduated from university. In the first 2 years, although Li Ruotai was still in college, he would come to Donghai very frequently by private jet to get in touch with some people. He was a dragon crossing the river, but a local snake was not willing to be provoked easily but was willing to make friends with them. Li Ruotai quickly established his own network in Donghai. The foundation was laid for the opening of the Crown Club and the expansion of the Li family's influence. It was during this time that Wang Zhuangyuan met Li Ruotai earlier than Zhao Guaizi and the others. At that time, Wang Zhuangyuan, although already had a lot of power, was still unable to compare with those three. However, Zhao Guaizi and the others would not easily touch Wang Zhuangyuan, because even if Wang Zhuangyuan was eliminated, their own losses would not be small. Wang Zhuangyuan first developed a relationship with Li Ruotai. Li Ruotai helped him. Then, just 4 years ago, Wang Zhuangyuan quickly reached an equal position with Zhao Guaizi and the others, and successfully changed the number of big shots on Donghai from 3 to 4. And in recent years, these 4 top figures had been fighting openly and secretly. They all wanted to destroy each other, make themselves bigger, and even want to dominate their own family. The peak of the conflict was in April of this year. An explosion occurred in a massage hotel owned by Yanju. The case was on the news, and it was reported that the underground pipeline of the hotel ignited and leaked, and an accidental explosion occurred, causing many hotel employees to be injured, one of whom was seriously injured. It was an accident. This was of course no accident. Although no one died, it also led to Yanju's confidant agent, the nominal owner of the hotel, being sent directly to prison. He hadn't fished it out yet. This incident directly made Li Ruotai furious. It stood to reason that Li Ruotai should be biased toward Wang Zhuangyuan. Wang Zhuangyuan was brought up by him for several years. If Li Ruotai really supported him, then by this year, Wang Zhuangyuan should have surpassed Zhao Guaizi and the others, already dominating one family. But no, Li Ruotai didn't do that. Because what he wanted was balance. It was impossible for a core child from a super family to be a dandy. Li Ruotai had his own wisdom, and he knew very well that once a family dominates, whether he could control it well was a problem. There was another problem, that was, shooting the first bird. In today's era, if you really set up a monopoly in a certain big city, you are not far from death. What really happened? A thunderous blow to Donghai from above. Not only those people on the road were about to end, but Li Ruotai would definitely have difficulty separating the relationship. What Li Ruotai wanted was balance and stability. So although Wang Zhuangyuan knew him first, in recent years, the relationship between the 4 people and him had not been too different, and it seemed that they could all be called confidants, but they all maintained this kind of distance that was difficult to break through. Li Ruotai was in the business of sensuality, so it was inevitable that he would have a relationship with the East China Sea. If he wanted to grow bigger and do better, he must deal with them. For example, where did Li Ruotai's astonishingly high-quality technicians come from? Of course, it was sent up below. If it wasn't for necessity, Li Ruotai would not have dealt with this group of ruffians. Zhao Guaizi and the others said that their power and status could be compared with those local rich people with a net worth of less than 1 billion. They couldn't be compared at all. But ruffians were ruffians after all, and they do the most unsafe business. With Li Ruotai's background and connections, Li Ruotai could destroy them if he wanted to destroy them. This was why Li Ruotai could become the big brother of the underworld in the East China Sea alone. He was both close to them and at a distance, maintaining a balance between the quartet, knowing them, and controlling them. After the bombings in April, at the beginning of May, Li Ruotai called the 4 of them together, as well as the well-known ruthless characters on the East China Sea underworld, and the older generation. Whoever dared to make trouble first, he would chop it up with his own hands. These secret meetings were the May Gathering, that Wu Chen mentioned yesterday when he called Zhao Guaizi under Li Ruotai's name. Wu Chen went back to his room to get his laptop, then went back to the living room, sat on the sofa, and began to browse the news. Wu Chen didn't think much about Wang Zhuangyuan's sending people to follow him. He understood Wang Zhuangyuan's character and behavior, so he knew why. In fact, to put it bluntly, he wanted to catch up with Wu Chen. He probably wanted to get to know Wu Chen first, and then find the right opportunity, or even create a coincidence, so that he could get to know Wu Chen privately and develop a relationship with Wu Chen. In this way, he would have an advantage in the competition with Zhao Guaizi and the others. This was why Wu Chen clearly knew that someone was following him, but he didn't pay much attention to him. Because he knew there was no danger. Not only was there no danger, Wang Zhuangyuan was even very likely to give him benefits and gifts directly. 11 o'clock at night, Wu Chen put away the computer and went back to sleep. He had a good night's sleep. A new day, July 9, 2020, 7 o'clock in the morning. Wu Chen woke up on time, picked up his phone, looked at the unreset time, and smiled. Although he had already determined that the time would not be reset passively, he still laughed when he sees the new date. Because there was a future life, it was really cool. He exercised yesterday, and his legs hurt a little, but it didn't affect his walking. Wu Chen got up, washed and changed, and went downstairs to have breakfast. Just when Wu Chen had just walked out of the unit building. At the entrance of the unit building, the man wearing glasses who was leaning against the wall and smoking a cigarette stood up straight, threw away the cigarette and stamped it out, then waved his hand to sweep away the smoke around him, looked at Wu Chen and said, "Mr. Wu, yesterday You are all good." Wu Chen turned to look at him and replied, "It's Wang Zhuangyuan." There were cigarette butts all over the floor, and nobody knew how early he came or how long he had been waiting at the gate. Asterisk. Chapter 42. Something went wrong. Wang Zhuangyuan was really terrified yesterday. It wasn't Wu Chen that he was afraid of, although he knew that Wu Chen was extraordinary. Yesterday those subordinates who followed him reported to him that Lu Guangnian and Wu Chen had a private conversation outside the restaurant door alone. He knew that Li Ruobing sent Wu Chen home, and she kissed Wu Chen. But he didn't know Wu Chen well. He only knew that Wu Chen was very powerful and resourceful, and he was afraid that he had some background. What he was afraid of was Li Ruotai. Wu Chen was able to call him, which had already shocked him greatly, because he immediately thought that the call might be from Li Ruotai. Otherwise, how could Wu Chen know his phone number? One thing he was very afraid of was that Wu Chen would tell Li Ruotai everything about the people he sent to follow him. Because of this incident, Li Ruobing was involved. Everyone in Donghai knew how much Li Ruotai defended his sister. Especially people in the underworld knew that if you offend anyone, make sure you didn't offend Li Ruobing. This was more terrifying than messing with Li Ruotai. If you provoked Li Ruotai himself, with Li Ruotai's personality, he would give you a chance to explain. As long as Li Ruotai had not lost his temper, you kowtowed and admitted your mistake, the matter will pass. But if Li Ruobing was offended, maybe he won't even have the chance to explain to Li Ruotai. And yesterday, although Wang Zhuangyuan sent someone to follow Wu Chen because Wu Chen had never been separated from Li Ruobing, they were following Li Ruobing the whole time. Wu Chen was Li Ruotai's brother-in-law. It's a real brother-in-law. If Li Ruotai knew about this, Wang Zhuangyuan broke into a cold sweat thinking about it. Li Ruotai personally promoted him. He knew Li Ruotai's methods too well. Wang Zhuangyuan was afraid that he would not be able to explain it clearly, and Li Ruotai would not let him explain. Last night, Wang Zhuangyuan tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. He picked up the phone many times and wanted to call Wu Chen, wanted to explain to Wu Chen, and then probed Wu Chen's tone to find out whether Wu Chen had told Li Ruotai. But in the end, he still didn't make the call. Because Wu Chen took the initiative to call him. Before hanging up, he said that he was going to sleep. If he called Wu Chen again, he would definitely make Wu Chen unhappy. At that time, it might not be a big deal, but it would cause a big deal because of this call. Wang Zhuangyuan went out as soon as the sun was shining. Go downstairs to Wu Chen's house. He didn't bother to go upstairs. He just waited, waiting for Wu Chen to go downstairs. Wu Chen looked Wang Zhuangyuan up and down. The gentle Wang Zhuangyuan, who was full of gentleness and dominance, looked a lot haggard today. His hair was a bit oily, and he had dark circles under his eyes. Mr. Wu, I actually want to explain to you. I'm not. Wang Zhuangyuan didn't finish. Wu Chen raised his hand to signal him to shut up, then turned his head to look at the alley, gestured, and said, "Have you had breakfast? There is a restaurant inside." Wu Chen walked further into the alley after speaking. Wang Zhuangyuan immediately followed Wu Chen's footsteps. "I haven't told him yet, take it easy." Wu Chen walked and glanced at Wang Zhuangyuan again and said. He seemed to know what Wang Zhuangyuan was thinking, or what he was afraid of. Wang Zhuangyuan really relaxed, really relieved. "Are you here alone?" Wu Chen asked casually again. "They're all on the street outside. I didn't let them come over, since you lived here. It's early in the morning. If there are many people and the neighbors see them, the influence would not be so good." Wang Zhuangyuan said. Wu Chen nodded and smiled. Wang Zhuangyuan was really good at handling things. The two walked to the very inside of the alley. There were some small shops in this alley, such as convenience stores and fast food restaurants. Wu Chen took Wang Zhuangyuan into a breakfast shop. It was the kind of dirty small restaurant, and the breakfast was soy milk fried dough sticks, buns, pickles, and the like. Because it was past 7 o'clock, the peak time for breakfast had actually passed, and there was only one table of guests in the small restaurant. Wu Chen nodded casually, then found a seat near the door with Wang Zhuangyuan and sat down. After Wang Zhuangyuan sat down, he observed the environment of the breakfast shop a few more times. He hadn't eaten in such a small restaurant for too many years. Since he got mixed up, all the places he went to and out of were high-end places, and the food he ate was exquisite. He didn't expect Wu Chen to come to this kind of place for breakfast. Of course, he wouldn't think that Wu Chen was poor because he was just an ordinary person. He would only think that Wu Chen was too low-key. The buns and fried dough sticks were already made, and the waiter quickly brought them up. "What do you want from me?" Wu Chen picked up the fried dough sticks, tore them up one by one, and kept throwing them into the soybean milk bowl, asking at the same time. "Mr. Wu, I have to explain to you. You must have misunderstood. I have no ill intentions toward you." Wang Zhuangyuan began to explain. Of course, he wouldn't say what he really thought in his heart. He couldn't say that following him was to find an opportunity to get close to him deliberately, but there must be a reason. The reason Wang Zhuangyuan gave was to protect Wu Chen. In other words, secretly protecting Mr. Li's brother-in-law. Maybe it's because he really couldn't think of a normal reason, so he found such an awkward person. In fact, the reason was not very important. What was important was Wu Chen's reaction, Wu Chen's attitude. Wu Chen had already started to eat, and listening to Wang Zhuangyuan, he realized that he was really eloquent. He even made him feel that he was well-founded. "You know, those of us who are down there are, to put it mildly, bastards. You and Mr. Li are a family. Although Mr. Li didn't give orders, we all rely on Mr. Li." "Well, are you finished?" Wu Chen nodded plainly and asked Wang Zhuangyuan again. "Finished." Wang Zhuangyuan's complexion was suddenly not right, because Wu Chen didn't seem to believe what he said, but he didn't intend to trouble him either. "You don't want to eat?" Wu Chen asked Wang Zhuangyuan again. Wu Chen ordered enough food for 2 people, but Wang Zhuangyuan never moved. I'll eat. I'm quite hungry." Wang Zhuangyuan showed a fairly natural smile, picked up the fried dough sticks, tore them, and put them in the bowl. In fact, he was not in the habit of eating fritters like this. But Wu Chen ate like this just now. Last night, there was a violent gang fight on Fuyuan Road in this city. Witnesses took pictures of the incident. The police from the Fuyuan Road police station rushed to the scene after the incident, and one of them was seriously injured and sent to the hospital. Wu Chen suddenly turned his head and looked at the small TV hanging on the wall of the breakfast hall. The TV was not too loud, and it was on all the time, because the word, Fuyuan Road, was mentioned, which caught Wu Chen's attention. The television was showing footage captured by witnesses. The video was very shaky, but it could still be seen that a man was stripped on the street and beaten by a group of people. He was wearing boxers, which seemed to be dragged from a nearby building. Wu Chen knows this person, that was Hu Xiaowei. Wang Zhuangyuan followed Wu Chen's line of sight, glanced at the TV, and was not in the mood to pay attention. He adjusted his glasses, smiled, and said, "Mr. Wu, do you often come to this restaurant?" "Yes, often." Wu Chen turned his head, glanced at Wang Zhuangyuan, and continued to eat. The following breakfast time simply became a time for Wang Zhuangyuan to take the initiative to get close to Wu Chen. Ask this, ask that. He also recalled himself more than 10 years ago, and always came to this small restaurant, saying that he missed it. Just when the two of them were about to finish eating. Jingle. Wu Chen's cell phone rang. His mobile phone was placed on the table, and the caller ID, Ruobing. Wang Zhuangyuan also saw it. He stood up straight away and signaled to Wu Chen that he wanted to go out, but Wu Chen waved his hands to him, signaling that he didn't need to. There was nothing he couldn't listen to. So early, Wu Chen picked up the phone and said, "Are you at the company?" "Not yet. I just got up and am still on the way." Li Ruobing spoke quickly, with obvious anger in her tone. "Come to the company quickly, something has happened." Chapter 43, The Deadly Kind. "Okay, I got it." Wu Chen hung up the phone after speaking. He didn't ask any further questions. He could guess that something major happened to the company. Now Li Ruobing was concerned about the company. The company's success or failure would determine her fate. "I still have something to do, let's end here today." Wu Chen put away his phone and looked up, then stood up and walked out. Without saying anything, Wang Zhuangyuan took out his wallet, threw 100 yuan on the table, and followed Wu Chen out. "Mr. Wu, do you want to use my car?" Wang Zhuangyuan quickly followed Wu Chen and asked. At the same time he took out the Lamborghini key from his pocket. Wu Chen turned his head and glanced at it, and then took it. Wang Zhuangyuan followed Wu Chen out of the alley. Wu Chen saw the Lamborghini, and a row of cars parked behind the Lamborghini, and there were people smoking beside the off-road vehicle. Seeing Wang Zhuangyuan coming out, they all nodded and called him Big Brother. "What do you mean?" Wu Chen turned to look at Wang Zhuangyuan and asked. The question was not abrupt. Because Lamborghini was too. There was not only Wang Zhuangyuan's white Lamborghini, but also a blue Lamborghini Aventador, and it was the latest generation released last year. Wang Zhuangyuan's Lamborghini was a smuggled car without a legal license plate. It had been driven for several years and was an old model. "Mr. Wu, I've misunderstood you. I'm really sorry. Just take it as my apology. You drive the car. If you have any problems, I'll take care of them." "Look," Wang Zhuangyuan said. He lied. Wu Chen also knew that he was lying because it was only after 7 o'clock in the morning. The car couldn't have been bought in the middle of the night last night, right? The Lamborghini 4S store in Donghai was impossible to open in the middle of the night. No matter how strong Wang Zhuangyuan's relationship was, he might be able to get the car at night, but he can't go through the formalities. It didn't matter if he drives the water truck for fun, but he will definitely not send the car without the formalities. Therefore, he should have bought the car yesterday. It was impossible for him to predict and know that Wu Chen would suddenly call him. So the real situation should be that when he left the Crown Clubhouse yesterday morning, he immediately decided to have a relationship with Wu Chen, so he sent someone to follow him, because Wu Chen had driven his Lamborghini away, and he thought Wu Chen liked Lamborghini. So he bought one, intending to look for an opportunity to do what he likes and give it to Wu Chen. "Okay," Wu Chen replied with one word. He pressed the key, and the blue Lamborghini flashed its lights. He got in the car and started the ignition. When starting the car, Wu Chen took a look at the interior of the car. It really was the latest model. If you buy an existing car, it must not have any configuration, but this was a Lamborghini Aventador, commonly known as Big Bull, and the landing price was at least more than 8 million. Wu Chen didn't really care how expensive the car was. But Wang Zhuangyuan was able to make a decision immediately yesterday, take out 8 million to buy a car, and find an opportunity to give it to Wu Chen. With this kind of courage, it was no wonder that he could get to this level today. When Wu Chen drove the car out, Wang Zhuangyuan raised his hand on the side of the road to signal again, "Mr. Wu, go slowly." Wu Chen nodded to him with a calm expression in the car. More than half an hour later, Wu Chen drove to the underground parking lot of Block 7 of the CBD and parked the car. He turned his head and saw several cars belonging to Symphony Fashion and Li Ruobing. "She's already here." Going into the elevator and swiping the card to go upstairs, Wu Chen applied for employment at Wankai Fashion yesterday. Of course, there was an employee magnetic card, which was put in the pocket of his suit. When he came to the 31st floor, he went up the stairs to the 33rd floor. Wu Chen saw Li Ruobing's bodyguards everywhere on the 33rd floor. These bodyguards didn't stop Wu Chen. Of course, they knew who Wu Chen was. Seeing Wu Chen coming, they all greeted him, "Mr. Wu." In the office, Li Ruobing was standing by the window on the phone, subconsciously pacing back and forth, looking very irritable. "Has it been rescued? How about it? How many months? In other words, she won't be able to come to the press conference, right?" I understand, it's okay. I understand, Wu Chen didn't bother Li Ruobing. He walked to the sofa far away from Li Ruobing's desk and sat down. He naturally raised his legs, tilted his body and rested his chin on his hand, and watched Li Ruobing make a phone call. Another 5 minutes passed before Li Ruobing finally finished the phone call with a cold face. "Who was injured?" Wu Chen asked. "Deng Zunia, a car accident." Li Ruobing replied coldly, walked quickly to the filing cabinet, quickly found a folder in it, returned to the desk, and looked down. Did Ding Ruolong do it?" Wu Chen asked. "You even know her?" Li Ruobing looked up at Wu Chen. "She's a big star, who doesn't know her?" Wu Chen said with a smile. When Wu Chen was with Wang Zhuangyuan today, he rarely showed this kind of smile, because he always clearly distinguished people who can be used, and connections who can make friends, very clearly. "You know that's not what I asked. How do you know that Ding Ruolong did it?" Li Ruobing said. "It's very simple. This year's new product launch conference of your Symphony Fashion may not matter to the Symphony Company, but it is very important to you personally. Because you want to let the illusion come out before the bet comes out. Color Fashion's IPO financing. You want to raise your net worth as much as possible. So, you need to make the performance of Magic Color Fashion as high as possible, so that when Magic Color goes public, the stock price will be high. In this era of traffic, for a high-end cosmetics company, a suitable spokesperson is very important." Wu Chen smiled and said, "However, Ding Ruolong has been hindering you in all aspects, including your finding a spokesperson for the company in the past few years. Those who could speak for Symphony were second-tier, third-tier, or even outdated stars. This year, Symphony has finally reached a new height. Finally, a top-notch actress is willing to speak for Symphony, but Ding Ruolong has been interfering, even violating the rules of the bet, using the power of the Ding family to intervene. So, no matter how you talk, you can't find a spokesperson that meets your requirements. You didn't talk about Deng Zunia in secret until 2 months ago. Deng Zunia debuted as a singer and is currently a red-hot new generation female singer. She had an explosion of popularity. According to Li Ruobing's plan, she would formally push Deng Zunia to the front of the stage at the new product launch event. Deng Zunia would attend the press conference of Symphony Fashion that day, will go on the platform for Symphony Fashion, and endorse the new product series launched by Symphony Fashion that day. The product would become an instant hit. She wanted to transform Symphony Fashion from a well-known niche brand in China to a well-known big brand in China. For this press conference, Li Ruobing really prepared too much. Yesterday I helped you find the traitor. Ding Ruolong knew that the plan to steal product information was revealed. Today, Deng Zunia had a car accident. She can't come to the Symphony platform, and the follow-up publicity can't cooperate. Wasn't it too obvious? Wu Chen finally said. You really know a lot. Li Ruobing said quietly. In fact, Wu Chen didn't need to speak. She also knew it was Ding Ruolong, which was also the reason for her anger today. She didn't expect Ding Ruolong to be so ruthless and extremely perverted. He couldn't steal the product information, so he directly sent someone to bump into the female star who endorsed it. This was determined to destroy her new product launch event. The reason why Li Ruobing secretly signed Deng Zunia was to prevent Ding Ruolong from causing trouble. She thought that Ding Ruolong didn't know, but yesterday Wu Chen helped her find the traitor, and there was a spy who was always beside her as an assistant, so she understood that Ding Ruolong had always known about Deng Zunia's secret contract with Symphony. The reason why Li Ruobing had always been in a weak position in the confrontation with Ding Ruolong was not that her personal ability was not good enough. But the Ding family and the Li family were all supporting Ding Ruolong, while she was fighting alone. When Ding Ruolong used family power, the Li family would help him cover it up, and if Li Ruobing dared to cross the line and violate the rules of the betting contract, both the Ding family and the Li family would directly sentence her to lose. Li Ruobing took a deep breath, looked at Wu Chen, and asked, "Do you have any black material about Ding Ruolong?" That's why she called Wu Chen over today. It was not Wu Chen who did it that the spokesperson was hit by a car, nor could Wu Chen solve this matter. She was really angry and wanted to fuck Ding Ruolong. His black material, I have it, and it's a deadly kind. Wu Chen raised his eyebrows at Li Ruobing and smiled. Chapter 44. Bet you don't be jealous. Make an offer. Li Ruobing looked directly at Wu Chen. She wanted to buy Ding Ruolong's black material. I can't give it to you. Wu Chen directly refused. Li Ruobing's face changed, and then she squinted her eyes. She was a little suspicious again, that Wu Chen had something to do with Ding Ruolong. Don't be overwhelmed by anger. You know the power of the big family. If I really gave you his black material, you can't bring him down. Not only will the Ding family protect him, but your Li family will also protect him. Wu Chen said with a faint smile. It may even lead to the immediate cancellation of the bet, and the family may force you to marry Ding Ruolong. No matter how bad your relationship with the family is, you are also the Li family. Your behavior may cause conflicts between the two families. If you move Ding Ruolong like this, the Li family must make amends to the Ding family. So do you think, with your current strength, can you fight against your family? And the Ding family? Li Ruobing was silent. It was true that she did not think about it. When she called Wu Chen, she was the angriest. She really wanted to kill Ding Ruolong. However, what Wu Chen said now made her calm down. What Wu Chen said was right, she couldn't touch Ding Ruolong like this, as Ding Ruolong would never touch her directly. That was the bottom line. Ding Ruolong would only mess with the people around her and her company. Ding Ruolong wanted to marry Li Ruobing, but he didn't want to be with Li Ruobing forever. Li Ruobing thought about it and looked down at the file again. Are you looking at the files of the spokesperson candidates? Wu Chen asked. Li Ruobing said with a nasal voice, still looking down at the file. Deng Zunia was seriously injured and hospitalized due to an accident. For the contract signed between Symphony Fashion and Deng Zunia's agency, it was force majeure. The contract was automatically terminated and neither party breached the contract. Symphony needed a new spokesperson. And they had to find them as soon as possible, but it's hard, very, very hard. Because there were only 14 days left before the new product launch event. There was not enough time at all. Not to mention the big star's schedule and the issue of endorsement, let alone the endorsement of a niche brand, most of the top celebrities and actresses were not willing to accept. They reached the height of being able to speak for major international brands, and there was no reason to lower their status. Only a few top actresses were willing to accept, but it was also because of the face of money. But Ding Ruolong was disrupting the situation. Li Ruobing made a deal with the actress agent today, and tomorrow Ding Ruolong would go directly to the big boss of the other agency's agency and talk directly, and then they would go back on their word. This kind of thing happened too many times. Li Ruobing couldn't use the power of her family to find a spokesperson, and she didn't even ask her younger brother Li Ruotai to help her find a spokesperson, because Li Ruotai's energy was the energy of the Li family, and using it would violate the rules of the betting contract. Li Ruobing could only go about it by herself. She knew that she might have run out of chances, couldn't find a spokesperson, and the new product launch could be postponed or held as scheduled, but the influence would definitely be a lot worse. Li Ruobing looked at the files without saying a word. The atmosphere in the office was a bit dull. "Boss Li, do you want to hire me to find one for you?" Wu Chen asked suddenly with a smile. Li Ruobing looked up at Wu Chen. Wu Chen kept smiling. "Aren't you an information businessman? You do business in this area," Li Ruobing said coldly, then lowered her head and continued to look. Without the emotions and state of yesterday, today she seemed to be a lot estranged from Wu Chen. They obviously kissed. In fact, that's how she was. Now it's in her office, she and Wu Chen were the only two, and there was no need to act. "To make money, as long as the money is in place, I can find you even Dao Menying, or any other female star you like. I will definitely find someone that meets your requirements, and it is absolutely hot and popular." Wu Chen himself almost believed this awesome bragging. However, Wu Chen did have a way to find a spokesperson for Symphony very quickly, and she definitely met Li Ruobing's standards and even exceeded her standards. Just like the Dao Menying mentioned by Wu Chen just now. The popular fried chicken, the Queen of the Golden Horse Awards, the Queen of the Hong Kong Film Awards, the Queen of the Tokyo Film Festival, the Queen of the Golden Rooster and 100 Flowers. Dao Menying was only 28 years old this year and has been tepid in the past few years. But last year she participated in a big production, Sword and Autumn Water, which not only won nearly 20 actress titles at various film festivals and award shows but also won an international reputation for her explosive acting skills. This was a mainland actress who was on the verge of stepping into the ranks of internationally famous movie stars. Dao Menying was the female star who far exceeded Li Ruobing's standards. Besides her, there were a few others who have been too popular in the past 2 years, but those who were popular to their level would never even meet Li Ruobing. After listening to the call, the agent would immediately reject it, let alone talk about it. "You will look for one. How long will it take?" Li Ruobing didn't raise her head and talked to Wu Chen in a very coping manner. "It depends on who you are looking for," Wu Chen said. "For example, what about Dao Menying?" Li Ruobing still didn't look up, just dealing with Wu Chen. It's not that she deliberately picked the most difficult one, but Wu Chen mentioned her casually just now, so she just casually mentioned the name. She's simple, just a day. Wu Chen thought for a while and said. Li Ruobing's eyes paused while reading the information, looked up at Wu Chen, paused again, and asked, "One day?" Wu Chen nodded. "Do you know Dao Menying?" "No, what are you talking about?" Li Ruobing frowned. "Don't know each other doesn't mean you can't know each other. One day is enough." Wu Chen smiled and said it is a matter of course. However, Li Ruobing tilted her head and looked at Wu Chen with a look of caring for the mentally retarded. "Dao Menying is currently abroad. I have paid attention to her. She has been filming in Southeast Asia for 3 or 4 months. How much more information do you have?" "Awesome, you can't even see her, what's the use?" "One day." This was the first time Li Ruobing really felt that Wu Chen was blowing his socks off. "I didn't say to find Dao Menying directly. Can't I find someone related to her?" Wu Chen still smiled. "Hey." Li Ruobing lowered her head with a sneer, looked at the information, and said, "One day. I don't even care about time. Dao Menying has a cosmetic endorsement, so she can't take more." "One day. You really?" Li Ruobing didn't say anything. It sounded like she didn't want to talk to Wu Chen anymore. The office was quiet again. Wu Chen looked at Li Ruobing who was reading the information. He knew that Li Ruobing was very irritable now, and he understood that Li Ruobing didn't believe him at the moment. It would be strange if Li Ruobing believed what he just said. That seemed like an impossible thing indeed. And Wu Chen was the one who could turn the impossible into possible. It was impossible to completely conquer Li Ruobing without doing something that completely shocks Li Ruobing. 20 million. Give me 20 million, and I'll have Dao Menying show up in your office tomorrow morning. Wu Chen directly offered the price. Li Ruobing didn't speak. She didn't want to talk to Wu Chen now. "You don't believe me so much, why don't we make a bet? Wu Chen said again. Bet. It was a sensitive word for Li Ruobing. Because she was now a woman with a fate-determining bet. She looked up at Wu Chen with a blank expression, and then said after a pause, what bets are you going to make so you could shut up and leave me alone? If I lose, not only will I not take your money, but I will also give you 20 million. If you win, Li Ruobing asked, although she knew Wu Chen couldn't win, the bet must be fair. I won. First of all, you have to pay me 20 million. It's the fee you hired me to find a spokesperson. I didn't win it by gambling. Wu Chen said. So what do you want to win? Li Ruobing asked again. Win you, don't be jealous. Wu Chen smiled. Don't be jealous. What do you mean? Li Ruobing didn't understand at once. That's, if I have another woman, don't be jealous. Wu Chen smiled. Li Ruobing froze for a moment, then looked at Wu Chen with extremely weird eyes. Why should I be jealous? We're pretending to be a couple, and I didn't fall in love with you. Why would I be jealous? You can find whoever you like, and I have no right to interfere with you. Li Ruobing looked at Wu Chen with weird eyes. Although what you said is correct, I'm going to bet on this. Wu Chen smiled calmly. He wanted to get vaccinated in advance. This was a good opportunity. Li Ruobing didn't fall in love with him now, but it didn't mean he won't fall in love with him in the future. You just said whether to gamble or not. Wu Chen asked again. Bet, bet, bet. Let's go. Li Ruobing was really annoyed, looked down at the information again, and said at the same time. You can go to work. Go find her, don't disturb my work. Then it's settled, Wu Chen said with a smile, got up, and left. He left Symphony Company. He went downstairs and back to the underground parking lot. After sitting in the car, Wu Chen took out his mobile phone and dialed a number after starting the Lamborghini. When the car was just driving out, the phone rang. Mr. Wu, is there a problem with the car? Wang Zhuangyuan didn't expect Wu Chen to call him so soon. Number 1 scholar, make arrangements, I will use your people. Wu Chen said directly. You are? Wang Zhuangyuan was a little surprised, because Wu Chen called him the champion, and he called him very kindly. He didn't even ask for any extra words, and he agreed. No problem, Mr. Wu, how many people do you want? I will immediately call the brothers. Chapter 45, Conquering Wu Chen. Part 1. After listening to Wu Chen's request, Wang Zhuangyuan was stunned. It wasn't that the matter was difficult, on the contrary, it wasn't difficult at all. It could be said to be a fairly simple matter, but it was so weird. But Wang Zhuangyuan didn't ask Wu Chen why. He didn't ask too much about the big man's thoughts. After hanging up the phone, he immediately called a dozen of his subordinate bosses and asked them to call someone. After more than half an hour, Huahei Bar, at the entrance of a nearby internet cafe, Wang Zhuangyuan had already brought some of his trusted brothers to stand by the roadside, checking his watch many times, waiting for Wu Chen to come over. The blue Lamborghini appeared on the street, quickly reached the side of the road, and stopped slowly. Has everyone been called? Wu Chen asked as soon as he got out of the car and walked directly to the internet cafe. Don't worry, Mr. Wu. They're all playing games. Wang Zhuangyuan quickly followed Wu Chen and said. Wu Chen entered the internet cafe. This internet cafe was very large and the equipment looked very good, but at the moment it was empty. Except for dozens of people gathered near the counter, there were no other customers in sight. Because before Wu Chen arrived, Wang Zhuangyuan had already cleared it. Today, he booked the venue. Mr. Wu, seeing Wu Chen walking in, more than 40 people bowed to Wu Chen in unison. Take it easy. Wu Chen raised his hand to signal, and then gestured, turn on, download the game, and subdue a private server, Legend of the City Lord. Legend of the City Lord was an old game, it had been 20 years. The history of Legend was similar to Wu Chen's previous life, not exactly the same, but the core gameplay is the same. Hurry up, Wang Zhuangyuan shouted. A group of people sat down in a row and skillfully turned on, searched, and downloaded games. Most of these people were young people in their 18th and 19th years. They were real punks. The kind of people who go to internet cafes all year round. They didn't have the ability, but they play the game. There were also some middle-aged people, all of whom seemed to be over 40 years old, not many in number. Their awareness of playing games was definitely not as good as that of young people, but they were all old players who played Legend of the City Lord more than 10 years ago. Wu Chen walked to the innermost row, and he sat alone in the row, booting up and downloading. Because what he wanted to play was a private server, it would not be available on the computer in the internet cafe, and it must be downloaded. The internet cafe was super fast because the computer already had an official server client, so you only need to download the installation package to modify the official server data, and the download was very fast. Everything is downloaded in less than a minute. All register, and enter the 3rd district, which opened at 5 p.m. the day before yesterday. Use the king as the character name prefix. Wu Chen raised his head and shouted to the entire internet cafe. He also just registered. Character name, Conquer King Chen. Standing behind Wu Chen, Wang Zhuangyuan looked at Wu Chen super skillfully downloading, registering, and logging into the game. His face became weirder and weirder. It's really weird. When Wu Chen called him just now and wanted to use his people, he thought it was a big deal, and he also knew that his chance to perform had come. But he never expected that Wu Chen would ask him to call someone, to play games with him. And to play what was not the most popular game today. It's an old game released 20 years ago, and what he wanted to play was not an official server, but a private server. He had never played this game, because he was a good student back then and would not skip class to play games in internet cafes. But this game was too popular back then, and too many students in the class were playing and talking about it, so he knew that once the game was released at the beginning of the new century, it would conquer entire Asia. From 2000 to 2006, the popularity gradually receded. But this game had a group of die-hard fans, so the official server was still open today, but the version had not been updated for a long time. Was this a game young people would play? Even Wang Zhuangyuan began to doubt Wu Chen's age. As far as he knew, those who still played this game and loved to play private servers were all 34-year-old greasy middle-aged people, and there were many rich local bosses among them. Wang Zhuangyuan looked at Wu Chen's back, and the more he thought about it, the more strange he became, and he already showed a look of seeing strange things. Really early 20s. Wrong. Wang Zhuangyuan was shocked suddenly. Could it be that Mr. Wu was testing him? The more Wang Zhuangyuan thought about it, the more he felt that this was the case, otherwise, such a weird thing could not be explained at all. Mr. Wu must be testing his patience to see if he can handle this trivial matter well. Big people acted differently. In Wang Zhuangyuan's sight, Wu Chen's back became unfathomable again. You get on the number. Stay in the novice section first. Wu Chen ignored how Wang Zhuangyuan was fighting wits and courage with the air behind him, and raised his head and shouted, I will recharge to build a guild. After finishing speaking, Wu Chen took out his phone. Mr. Wu, there are still some brothers who haven't arrived, but they should be almost here. There should be 30 or 40 people coming one after another. Wang Zhuangyuan suddenly took a step forward, bent down and lowered his head, and said next to Wu Chen's ear. Okay. Wu Chen responded nasally, and took another look at Wang Zhuangyuan. Don't watch over me, go get busy if you have nothing to do. Quote. Okay. Wang Zhuangyuan agreed, stood up straight, glanced at the internet cafe, and then walked out. Before going out, he turned around and shouted, Everyone, listen to me, whoever performs best today, I will reward him 100,000. Brother, we'll do our best. Got it, brother. A large group of people agreed. Wang Zhuangyuan left. Chapter 46. Conquering Wu Chen. Part 2. Wu Chen started to recharge his game account, directly depositing 1 million yuan, and then established a guild, allowing everyone in the internet cafe to join. Using the guild function, he bought a VIP level for all members of the gang. With the VIP level, they could directly receive the corresponding equipment suits and other items, such as experience pills. The VIP level of this private server was very exaggerated, the highest is VIP 15. Wu Chen did not necessarily give them the highest level, since it had to be done step by step. After the whole gang received their corresponding VIPs, Wu Chen made another phone call to Li Ruobing. In a meeting, Li Ruobing said directly, "Give me 10 million. Wu Chen asked for the money. "Huh, what are you doing? Event funds." "Okay." Li Ruobing agreed and hung up without asking what Wu Chen was doing to spend so much money. The relationship between the two was very delicate now. It seemed that they were not that close, but they were very close, and Li Ruobing had an inexplicable trust in Wu Chen, at least in terms of money. She was not afraid that Wu Chen would cheat her of money. After all, Wu Chen helped Li Ruotai so much yesterday. Even if Li Ruobing directly gave Wu Chen 100 million, it would not be too much. More than 4 hours later, it was already past 12 noon. Wu Chen's guild in the game was already the largest guild in the entire server, and it had severely suppressed the original first guild, Dragon Slaughtering the World. 10,000. He bought VIP 15 for all the little brothers in the internet cafes, 100,000 yuan each. Wu Chen let them all get the best VIP reward weapons and armor so that they could go to the top dungeon to fight the boss, and get the best rings, shoes, belts, and amulets. It's not spending his own money, someone was paying the bill. Wu Chen doesn't feel bad at all. Normally, you don't need so much, but Wu Chen got into a fight with the leader of the Dragon Slaughtering the World Guild, and the two kept adding more money. There were already more than 80 people in the internet cafe. All of them were playing the private server of the same old game, and words like, hack, 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 and explosion, explosion, were everywhere. The smoke was lingering, as many people were smoking. They didn't stop talking when they were smoking. This was allowed by Wu Chen. When playing games, emotions were very important. Some people were very addicted to cigarettes, and it was difficult to concentrate if they did not smoke. Moreover, when playing games, they would cooperate. If he did not allow communication, they would not be able to play well at all. Wu Chen didn't have any other requirements for them, he just mentioned one thing in particular: don't swear in the game. Taunting was fine. They could taunt your opponent severely, but don't swear. And this group of people was also thieves when they mock people, and their hands fly fast when typing. It's time for lunch. Someone ordered takeaways and arranged for younger brothers to deliver them table by table. "Mr. Wu, your takeaway." A young man with earrings came to Wu Chen's table, said very cautiously, and put the takeaway on the table. "Okay, go." Wu Chen turned his head and glanced at him, then turned his attention back to the screen. It's almost there. There were no more casual players in the entire server, and all other small guild players had been killed and quit the game. Only Wu Chen's Overlord King Guild and Dragon Slaughter the World gang were left. This private server started a siege battle every 3 days, which was a staged final battle. If they succeeded in the siege, they would be awarded the title of Legendary City Lord, and get exclusive equipment for the city owner. The siege battle could also be started in advance, and they could spend money. But if they started it in advance, they might not be able to beat the ultimate boss of the city defense. In fact, the ultimate boss was secondary. A Krypton Gold private server was mainly for other players. If you don't win other siege players first, you won't be able to see the ultimate boss. Wu Chen nodded, and then the whole server issued an announcement. Remind all players, the Lord of the Overlord King's Guild, Conqueror King Chen, will start the battle of the main city in advance. All players, please get ready, the battle of the main city will officially start in 30 minutes. Everyone eat first. The siege battle will start in an hour. Wu Chen raised his head and shouted. Half an hour later, all read names. The siege battle begun. The Overlord King Guild and the Dragon Conquer the World Guild fought a life and death battle in the main city square. The battle was very fierce. Both sides were constantly dying, resurrecting, and rejoining. Chop hack. His weapon exploded. Give me, I just got equipped. Quick, come on. The internet cafe was noisy, and this group of young people was really excited when they were fighting a decisive battle. The two gangs in the game had been fighting for more than half an hour, and there was no winner yet. But Wu Chen's Overlord King Guild had the advantage because the Overlord King's Guild had more core members. Wu Chen suddenly shouted on the screen, "I don't want to play anymore. I have something urgent. Let's break up, brothers. Give away your equipment. Go offline and retire. Take off your equipment and log out of the game," someone yelled. More than 80 people in the internet cafe were stunned for a moment, and they didn't know why, but they all followed suit. The main city square was immediately filled with a large number of glittering top game equipment, all over the place. Now it's the turn of the members of the Dragon Conquer the World Guild in the game to be stunned. It could be said that all members were stunned. It's a decisive battle, don't you want to fight? This feeling of suddenly losing an opponent would make people feel that the game was boring all of a sudden. Fucking buddy, what are you doing? Don't leave, don't, we haven't decided yet. I've rushed 10 million, and you spent 8 or 9 million, right? You finally have an opponent, and you stop playing. Wu Chen received 3 private messages one after another. They were all sent by the same person. Looking at this person's game ID, Wu Chen showed a faint smile. He is called Dragonfall Without Regret in the game, and he was the leader of the Dragon Conquer the World Guild, but in reality, he was a very dirty and greasy middle-aged man, the youngest son of his family, and a super rich second generation. He had another identity. He was behind the popular superstar Dao Menying, the benefactor of the Golden Star. Asterisk. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chapter 47. I'm really not me bragging with you. Except for a very small number of female stars who have advanced qualifications, had become important shareholders of brokerage companies, or had a big background before entering the industry, most of them were nothing in front of real big shots. However, it was not easy for a popular star to move. That's the company's cash cow. The entertainment industry was very deep. Those large economic companies and entertainment companies had very strong connections, and some were even started by the children of big families. Naturally, they would try their best to protect their own cash cows and keep them from trouble. Therefore, the vast majority of female stars might not be very powerful, but behind them, there were usually strong connections supporting them. Except for the shelter of the entertainment company. There was another situation, that was, being taken care of by a benefactor, being promoted by a benefactor. This was the case with Dao Menying. She graduated from Beijing Film Academy, but as early as when she was in high school, she was already hired by the sponsor. Because she wanted to become a star, the sponsor agreed to let her learn acting. When Dao Menying was in college, the sponsor began to spend money to make her start acting in movies. It wasn't until after she graduated from university that the benefactor began to support her with all his strength. However, for several consecutive years, although Dao Menying had starred in many movies, she had not completely become popular and had been hovering between the first and second tiers. Until last year, because of a movie, she reached the sky in one step. Of course, all of this was inseparable from the sponsor's efforts, even including her winning more than 20 actress titles in one go, some of which she did win by hard work, but some were not, and were the result of the sponsor's operation. Dragonfall Without Regrets was her benefactor. Wu Chen replied to the private message, "Friend, I have something urgent to do today, I have to go offline." "Brother, don't go, don't go. What's so urgent? Let's finish the game." "Okay. You can't be from the private server, right? You lied to me and spent tens of millions, and you don't want to play. Are you playing me?" Dragonfall Without Regrets sent over messages again and again, in a very rude tone. "If I were a trustee, I will continue to fight with you." "There is something wrong with that logic." Wu Chen replied. Yes, Dragonfall Without Regrets, he responded. He was so angry that he felt that Wu Chen was trusting him. In fact, if you think about it, it can't be. Because the developer wouldn't be so aggressive. If he wanted to complete the Overlord server in a few hours, it would force the rich boss who played the game away. It's not that Dragonfall Without Regrets has never met the developer. He knows that the developer will always catch him and stay with him for many days. Although it will cost him a lot of money in the end, it will also make him happy. Conqueror King Chen did not intend to make him feel good. At present, there was a gap in the number of the two major guilds in the game. There were nearly 400 people in Dragon Conquer the World, and only over 200 people in Overlord King. But Dragon Conquer the World just cannot beat Overlord King. Because the core players were too poor. There were more than 20 core players in Dragon Conquer the World. And the others were all casual players who could not guarantee online time. This server was opened the day before yesterday. In the past 2 days, Dragon Conquer the World added a lot of casual players to the guild, but many of them would not be online after playing for a day. So in fact, when the decisive battle was fought, the number of members on both sides was about the same. There were more than 200 people online each. And the Overlord King not only had a lot of core players but even the casual players whose ID prefix was King listened to commands very well. Because they only played today, and they had been fighting until now. In fact, if one thought about it carefully, they would understand that they met a billionaire who had the same hobbies as them. Ordinary rich people couldn't do it. The rich couldn't afford it. Dragonfall Without Regrets sent another message, "Brother, don't go. Finish the fight with me. You finish the fight with me. How much money you recharged today, I will reimburse you. Treat it as a friend." He was really uncomfortable. Since the appearance of a group of players with the prefix ID of King today, he hadn't had a good time. Of course, he did not recharge so much money every time he played on private servers. It depended on the level of the opponent. Usually, he spent tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars for a few days. The last time he spent millions was half a year ago. And he started playing this private server the day before yesterday and spent a total of less than 300,000 in these 2 days. Wu Chen charged $1 million directly. From the beginning, he pressed the Dragon Conquer the World Guild to fight. When Dragonfall Without Regrets discovered the situation, he was excited at first, because the opponent came, so he decisively charged $1 million. Then Wu Chen charged money again. He continued to rush. The Dragon Conquer the World had been suppressed and beaten until the end. Wu Chen suddenly launched a siege. Compared with Krypton Gold, Wu Chen was sure that money couldn't beat Dragonfall Without Regret. But the number of private server players was limited. In the end, all online players were basically members of the two major guilds. There were only a few hundred people in total. In addition to recharging equipment, the top dungeons would also drop top equipment. All top equipment. It didn't make much sense to pay anymore. Therefore, the final decision was the number of core members and whether the players as a whole obeyed the command. Dragonfall Without Regrets knew that he might lose in today's siege battle. But it's not completely impossible to turn the tables. He wanted to win. It's cool to win. But Wu Chen let him win by suddenly quitting the game, and all the core players in the guild took off their equipment. This feeling, if it wasn't for the private chat with Overlord King Chen, Dragonfall Without Regrets would have wanted to smash the computer. "Brother, why are you in such a hurry? It won't be an hour or two, right? The actual fact that you are not playing, how can I play? Who will I play with? The two of us have rushed 20 million, not to share a victory or defeat, is interesting. Isn't it for our entertainment? People live to breathe, brother. Come on, let's do it. I admit that I lost to you today, you can't leave." From the words, one could feel the eagerness of Dragonfall Without Regrets. He always burst out a few messages. While Dragonfall Without Regrets was talking to Wu Chen, the members of the Dragon Conquer the World Guild did not go to kill the members of the Overlord King Guild. They all stopped, stood there motionless, and did not pick up the equipment left by the members of the Overlord King. Apparently, Dragonfall Without Regrets gave the order in the guild channel, so don't let him fight for now. I really have something to do. Wu Chen looked at the screen with a smile, and quickly typed, "I have to go to Donghai CBD now, I can't play anymore." "Oh, you are also in Donghai City. Are you from Donghai?" Dragonfall replied, very surprised. Quote question mark question mark question mark. "You too," Wu Chen typed, and the tone of the reply showed even more surprise. "I'm not from the East China Sea, but I'm in East China Sea." What a coincidence. Wu Chen replied again, "That's enough, let's not talk about it, I have to go. Don't. Dragonfall without regrets reply was super fast this time, and he typed again, brother, what trouble are you in? Tell me, I'll settle it for you. I'm not bragging, there is nothing I can't solve in Donghai. I believe you, you are awesome. Wu Chen replied this time, saying that he believed the other party's words, but the tone gave the impression that he didn't believe it and dealt with it. Oh, don't you believe me? Let me tell you, you can play with me today. I will take care of the big things for you. So awesome. Wu Chen replied continuously, actually, it's not I have something to do. My daughter's company had an accident. The product spokesperson was hit by a car. The contract was terminated and I had to find a new spokesperson. I have to go back and help her deal with it. Spokesperson. Celebrity. Do you want a man or a woman? Female. Female celebrities are easy to talk about. I have a few under my command, so you can tell me how many of them you want. Are you that so powerful? Wu Chen didn't seem to believe it. Don't believe me. It's not that I'm bragging to you. Even if it's Dao Menying, I can call her with just one call. Wu Chen's hand that was about to continue typing suddenly stopped, and he looked at the screen and smiled again. This was what he was waiting for. Chapter 48. Coincidence. No, we are destined. This Dragonfall without regret was indeed able to call Dao Menying back from Taiwan with a single phone call. Dao Menying had been taken care of by him for almost 10 years. Although today's Dao Menying achieved success and fame, she was still just a foster woman in front of her benefactor father. Since the benefactor could hold a woman high and make her a smash hit female star, he naturally has the ability to make her lose everything immediately. That's the truth. But, playing a game and having people call Dao Menying back was definitely not enough. It's not a question of can, but a question of whether it's worth it. This was just an introduction. You know Dao Menying, Wu Chen replied. We're more than just acquaintance. Dragonfall without regret replied, and didn't continue. After all, he raised her. I really have to go, Wu Chen replied again. Are you still leaving? What do you mean? Don't you believe me? Do you look down on me? Dragonfall without regret seemed to be on fire. My friend, it's not that I don't believe you. You said we met on a private server. I just happened to be busy. How could it be a coincidence? You happen to have a female celebrity under your command. You run a brokerage company. I don't run a brokerage company. But there is indeed a relationship. What a coincidence. This game is no longer played by anyone, it is fate that we meet each other. It is destiny. Do you understand, my friend? Actually, for Wu Chen, this was really not a coincidence. Although it was Li Ruobing who said she was looking for Dao Menying, Wu Chen mentioned the name, Dao Menying, first. Quickly finding a popular star, he immediately thought of Dao Menying. But from Dragonfall without regret's point of view, he might think it's a coincidence now, but once Wu Chen chatted with him a lot, he would think it's not a coincidence and even doubt him. So, Wu Chen was the first to make a move. However, it was Dragonfall who called it destiny first. Wu Chen will let him name, what is it called, special fate. That's it. Let's stop fighting, you come out. Are you in Donghai now? Make an appointment, or I will find you. I will arrange for someone to contact the private server boss and ask them to stop the server in the 3rd district first. I'll find the spokesperson for you. When we're done, I'll get them to restore it and we'll fight again. Both of us spent $20 million in total, so there must be a result. If I don't make things clear for you today, I'll take your name. Dragonfall was really short-tempered, and very casual. In short, he was rich and willful. Wu Chen understood his character, so that was the plan before, when Dragonfall took the initiative to ask someone out. If Dragonfall didn't take the initiative, then Wu Chen would use words to stimulate him and ask him out. Come on, my woman is in a hurry, if you really have a way, my friend, that would be the best. Wu Chen said. 136,555, Dragonfall without regrets sent a mobile phone number, and then typed. This is my phone number. Brother, if it's convenient for you, come to Qingyuan Tea House in Zhongcheng District, I'll wait for you. Okay, my phone number is, the chat was over. Wu Chen raised his head and glanced at the internet cafe. More than 80 people were waiting for him. After Wu Chen asked them to log off, he didn't let them go. They didn't know if there were any other orders. Many of them didn't even know who Wu Chen was, they only know that their surname was Wu. But their elder brother's elder brother, Wang Zhuangyuan, treated Wu Chen respectfully, so they naturally did not dare to neglect. It's done. You all performed well today, I will tell the boss. Wu Chen stood up and said loudly. He just let the others leave. After talking with Dragonfall, Wu Chen knew he would get what he wanted. Hearing Wu Chen's words, the large group of young people, and a very small number of middle-aged people, more than 80 people stood up. Thank you, Mr. Wu. Wu Chen watched them turn off the computer, and then they all went out. The members of the Dragon Conquering the World Guild went offline in batches. Suddenly the game interface flashed. Wu Chen didn't take the initiative to quit, so he dropped the line directly. Apparently, Dragonfall already greeted the private server boss, and the 3rd district had temporarily suspended the server. Data would be saved. Dragonfall without regrets doesn't know the owner of this private server, but he was a super local tycoon who recharged more than 10 million. The owner of the private server was afraid that he would just turn off the computer and leave. After about half an hour. Zhongcheng District, Chunyuan Street. The blue Lamborghini came whistling, then slowed down slowly, and finally stopped on the side of the road. Wu Chen got off the station for a while, looked up at the antique signboard of the tea house on the street, Qingyuan Tea House. This was it. Any tea house business could basically be called a high-end social place. There were more tea houses in the south, but relatively few in the north. In Donghai, Qingyuan Tea House was considered one of the top ones. A pot of tea was 888 yuan, which was the cheapest, and there were tens of thousands of expensive ones. Donghai was a northern city in East China. Locals seldom came to tea houses, but when some big bosses received customers from the south, they knew that they liked to drink tea and talk business, so they would bring them here. Wu Chen walked towards the gate of the tea house. As soon as he entered the lobby on the 1st floor, a well-dressed and 7-point girl greeted him immediately. With a professional smile on her face, she nodded to Wu Chen before asking, "Sir, do you have a reservation?" Quote. The voice was very gentle. Although this tea house also had a place in the lobby on the 1st floor, it was mostly used for resting and waiting for guests. To be honest, I must go to the private room. My friend arrived first, and his in Mengwei West Lake. Wu Chen looked and said casually. Mengwei West Lake is the name of the private room. Is it Mr. Wu? Yes. Please, come with me. On the way here, Wu Chen had a brief conversation with Dragonfall without regrets, and it was Dragonfall without regrets who took the initiative to call and told Wu Chen private room, and asked Wu Chen's surname. The reception lady led Wu Chen up to the 2nd floor. Quaint decoration everywhere, and very private. In front of the gate of Mengwei West Lake, there were 2 bodyguards with hulking backs. When the reception lady brought Wu Chen over, they turned their heads and looked over with sharp eyes. Mr. Wu, it's here. The reception lady walked to the door, pushed the door open, and then made a gesture of invitation to Wu Chen. The person was brought by the reception lady, so the bodyguards naturally wouldn't stop him. Thank you. Wu Chen said something to the reception lady, and walked in. Chapter 49. Are you so careful? It was a very spacious private room, much larger than the usual hotel private room that could seat more than a dozen people, but there was only a table in the middle of the private room, 4 wooden chairs, and there were decorations such as flower stands and screens in the room. A middle-aged man in his early 40s, wearing a simple high-necked t-shirt, baggy shorts, and slippers, was sitting at a table drinking tea. He was tall and a bit fat, but not too fat, giving people a very strong feeling. His face was full of scum, and his hair hadn't been washed for a few days. He looked very dirty and greasy. As for the 2 bodyguards at the door, even if you picked anyone in random, they were 100 times more temperamental than him. He looked like an ordinary middle-aged man in the market. He might have had a good figure when he was young, but after he got married and had children, his figure began to lose shape, and he stopped paying attention to his clothes. Triviality smoothed out the edges and corners of youth and frivolity, become extremely mediocre, vulgar, and would be mediocre for a lifetime. This was his first impression. No one would think that he was a rich and powerful man. But in fact, he was not only rich, but extremely rich. One thing worth mentioning was that this man had a very faint scar on the right side of his neck. This was his most distinctive feature, and it was also the reason why he was used to wearing a high collar, which could block it. As far as Wu Chen knew, this scar was caused by a car accident many years ago. When Wu Chen entered the room, the slovenly middle-aged man also turned his head to look at the door. When he saw Wu Chen for the first time, he was taken aback. Wu Chen was also taken aback. But the reason why the two were stunned was different. The sloppy middle-aged man was stunned because Wu Chen was too young. He thought he had met a middle-aged rich man who had the same hobbies as him. He might be a little younger than him, but he wouldn't be too young. The two of them had a brief conversation before, and he could hear Wu Chen's voice was a bit young, but his tone was very calm. So he had guessed that Wu Chen might be in his early 30s, about the same age. But he never expected that Wu Chen was only in his early 20s. "So it's you, Boss Lei." Wu Chen spoke first, with a surprised look on his face. He did it on purpose to make the other party feel that they recognized him naturally, and that the two were really destined for each other. "Chen, Wu Chen?" the sloppy middle-aged man asked. He knew that there might be a word Chen in Wu Chen's name, because Wu Chen's game character was called Overlord Chen, and his surname was asked before. "Yes, it's me." Wu Chen nodded and walked inside. The bodyguard closed the door outside. "You know me?" the slovenly middle-aged man asked, his eyes following Wu Chen's movements. "Second son of the Lei family of Hongfa Industry, I have heard of your reputation for a long time. We are really destined," Wu Chen said with a smile. When he said, "destiny," his expression became subtle. The sloppy middle-aged man noticed this subtlety, and it was Wu Chen who made him notice on purpose. After Wu Chen finished speaking, he gathered his suit again, and sat on the chair opposite the sloppy middle-aged man. Hongfa Industry. In fact, there were quite a lot of companies with this name. It was a very popular name, not a duplicate name, because an official company name would not only have a few words, such as including the registered place name. If you read them all, the name would definitely be different, and the business category would also be different. Industry was a general term, and manufacturing-based enterprises, as well as some high-tech enterprises, could all be called industries. The Hongfa industry mentioned by Wu Chen was the Hongfa Wying Precision Group in Guanan County, Weishi City. This was an industrial group that could rank among the top 10 in the country in the field of OEM, and was involved in many fields such as air conditioning research and development, auto parts production, etc. The current total asset scale exceeded 60 billion. The Hongfa Lei family, also known as the Lei family, held a total of 31% of Hongfa Group's shares. Together, they were the largest shareholder of Hongfa and the actual controller of Hongfa. Hongfa Group was originally a small state-owned factory in Guanan County, Weishi City. Its efficiency was very poor and it was close to bankruptcy. In the early 1990s, when the tide of privatization came, Lei Zhengwei, who was the director of Hongfa Machinery Factory at the time, raised a sum of money to buy the factory, changed his business ideas, and developed rapidly. In the 30-year history of Hongfa Precision, it experienced many bankruptcy crises and received several financings. After developing to a certain level, it also annexed another large industrial group, Wying Industry. Financing and mergers and acquisitions, the shares were liquidated many times, which was the reason why the Lei family only has 31% of the shares. However, the control of the enterprise had always been firmly in the hands of the Lei family, and equity and voting rights were two different things. At present, the chairman of Hongfa Business Group was Lei Zhengwei, who was nearly 70 years old, but he was already in a semi-retired state. The actual manager was Lei Zhengwei's eldest son, Lei Yu, who was the general manager. And the one sitting in front of Wu Chen at the moment was Lei Zhengwei's second and youngest son, named Lei Cheng. Lei Cheng was 42 years old this year. He was currently the 7th largest individual shareholder in the company, holding 5% of the shares of Hongfa Group. In addition, he was also the deputy general manager of Hongfa Wying and the chairman of Donghai Fumao Group, a subsidiary of Hongfa. He was a general manager. He has been in Donghai for many years, so he still had some other businesses, but the scale was definitely not comparable to the family business. My reputation, sloppy and greasy. Lei Cheng smiled, seemingly cheerful, but Wu Chen felt a kind of self-mockery in it. He smiled again and looked at Wu Chen and said, "Which family are you from?" "Which one am I from?" Wu Chen asked back. He pretended not to understand, but actually understood. Lei Cheng was already guessing which big family Wu Chen came from, otherwise he couldn't explain it. He was so rich at such a young age, and he spent tens of millions in private server games without blinking. Obviously a super rich second generation. "Which one?" Lei Cheng frowned suspiciously, thought for a while, picked up the teapot and asked with a smile, "Forget it, I won't ask you, but, little brother, at your age, how can you play with such an old man? You're so young, more than 10 years younger than I thought." He asked, filled his teacup, and poured another cup of tea for Wu Chen. There was only one pot of tea and 2 cups on the table. "I tried to play casually. A lot of things have happened recently, and the pressure is too great. I tried to find a refreshing game to play. The last time I played that game was when I was in the 4th grade of elementary school." Wu Chen said with a smile. How about venting the pressure?" Lei Cheng smiled, and then sighed. "You rich young people are really better than me when you spend money." "It's okay." Wu Chen smiled and turned his head again, glancing towards the door. "Have a cup of tea first." Lei Cheng gestured with the teacup. Wu Chen picked up the teacup and said, "Boss Lei, those 2 bodyguards at the door don't look like ordinary people. Why are you so careful? Are you afraid that your brother will kill you?" Lei Cheng, who had just brought the teacup to his mouth, suddenly froze. The eyes looking at Wu Chen became sharp in an instant. Chapter 50. Li Ruobing sends an assist. The words, "Are you afraid your brother will kill you?" can be said to have caused Lei Cheng's nerves to jump suddenly. He stared at Wu Chen sharply, motionless, as if he wanted to see through Wu Chen. "Which family do you belong to?" Lei Cheng squinted his eyes and asked. His tone was no longer relaxed and cheerful before, but became cold and hard. He didn't doubt that Wu Chen approached him on his own initiative. Because the two met through playing games, and they were in the same private server. A private server couldn't be played for a few days at all, and after the boss dominated the server, the popularity would quickly lose. So Lei Cheng would always change, and he didn't play every day. With the frequency of Lei Cheng's server changed and the degree of confidentiality he kept his own information, he didn't think anyone could actively approach him in this way. He didn't doubt it in that direction. It was certain that before Wu Chen met him, he didn't know who he was, and he didn't believe that he was capable. He just wanted to deal with his own affairs quickly. If it wasn't for his crazy private chat, the two of them would not have met. Even the meeting was brought up by Lei Cheng himself. So, Lei Cheng seemed to understand a little bit. When Wu Chen just entered the door, he saw his subtle expression. That kind of subtlety, it's not because he had a superficial understanding of himself and why he stayed away from the family, but because he seemed to really know about the messy things in his family. And these things, only those who reached a high enough status, some particularly heavyweights, might hear about them. He really didn't expect to meet him here, so he had that expression. "Boss Lei, take it easy." Wu Chen took a sip of tea with a smile, put down the teacup and said, "To tell you the truth, I really don't belong to that kind of family. I don't have the background you think, but I do know something about you. I really want to say it again." Wu Chen paused and laughed again. "Although you said this first, it has to be said that we are really destined." After finishing speaking, Wu Chen revealed a very subtle smile. "No background. Where do you get the money? What kind of business is the family doing?" Lei Cheng asked. "Restaurants, small businesses, not worth mentioning." Wu Chen replied. "He's not lying, he really ran a restaurant, and it's really small and not worth mentioning. He just ran a ramen restaurant in a small county town." Lei Cheng looked at Wu Chen in silence for a while, took a sip of tea, put down the teacup and said, "Forget it." He once again showed a cheerful smile to Wu Chen. That's it. The mind was very deep, especially able to hide things. Forget it. Don't ask, but it was impossible not to investigate Wu Chen in the future. Although he didn't think Wu Chen was here to threaten him, he was too young. Sending this kind of person over was like delivering food. Impossible. But he had to know who Wu Chen was, and which big family's core child was he. Tell me about your woman. Why did the spokesperson get hit by a car? Lei Cheng asked with a smile. You can spend tens of millions of money in the game without blinking. Why can't you even get a spokesperson? I got messed up. Wu Chen sighed and smiled again. I can't help it. Business is not easy these days. Not only business, but also many problems. Boss Lei, you are in business. You should understand. Lei Cheng nodded. Of course he understood the intrigues in the shopping mall and the black hands make trouble. Commercial competition. Lei Cheng subconsciously dragged his teacup and said, it's a cruel way to directly hit the spokesperson into the hospital. It can't be regarded as commercial competition, but it is indeed to hinder the company's development and has other purposes. Wu Chen purposely spoke vaguely. Lei Cheng tilted the corner of his mouth and said again, black, it's so fucking black, the spokesperson has provoked someone. He didn't ask Wu Chen what the other purpose was. It's not that much curiosity, and it had nothing to do with him. It's black. I've been annoyed by this these days. I knew that the other party would cause trouble, but I didn't even think about it. They would directly hit the spokesperson. It's a new product spokesperson. The press conference hasn't even started yet. It won't work anymore, Wu Chen said. It's not easy for you. Lei Cheng said with a smile, don't worry, although we just met, but I am true to my words. I'll help you find a spokesperson, and I also have some contacts in the entertainment circle. So, who do you want? Lei Cheng took out his mobile phone as he spoke, and acted like if Wu Chen said the name, he would call someone directly. Yes, it must be suitable for the company's products, Wu Chen thought about it. Oh, yes, yes. These words reminded Lei Cheng, I haven't asked you yet, what is the name of your woman's company? What kind of business is it, and how big is it? Although he asked about the scale, Lei Cheng knew that Wu Chen's woman's company was definitely not small. The cosmetics company focuses on high-end, colorful and fashionable, and is quite famous in the East China Sea. The company's scale is valued at 1.8 billion to 2 billion. It can only be regarded as a niche boutique. Wu Chen said. Cosmetics, the young and beautiful skin is fine, it's up to me. Lei Cheng said with a grin, because he had a lot of women like this. It has to be famous. Wu Chen reminded. Don't worry about it, little brother, your brother is not just bragging with you, I'll find you a first-line one. The new generation, young. Lei Cheng said in a rough and a bit lewd way. As he spoke, he began to flip through his phone and check the phone's address book. Wait, I'll give it to you right now. Lei Cheng's voice stopped suddenly, and he suddenly looked up at Wu Chen. What's the matter? If I am inconveniencing Boss Lei, forget it, after all we met by chance. Wu Chen smiled. No, Lei Cheng immediately said, continued to stare at Wu Chen, and then asked. What is the name of your woman's company? Symphony Fashion, what's wrong? Your woman's surname is Li. Yes, that's correct. What's the matter? Wu Chen looked very puzzled, but in fact he knew why Lei Cheng was puzzled. The eldest granddaughter of the Li family, is Li Ruobing your woman? Lei Cheng finally asked thoroughly. Yeah, that's right, it's her. Wu Chen still looked puzzled. Boss Lei, what's wrong? Ha, ha ha ha. Lei Cheng laughed and then laughed loudly. You really, why didn't you just tell me if you're from the Li family? I thought you belonged to someone else. Do you know Ruobing? Wu Chen asked knowingly. I don't know. Lei Cheng shook his head. Tai. I've seen him once, but I'm not familiar with him. Then what are you laughing at, Boss Lei? Wu Chen asked. Because, I know which family you belong to. Lei Cheng said. He lied. Wu Chen knew the real reason. The Li family had nothing to do with the Lei family. There might be contacts at the lower level of the family, but at the top level, there was no intersection, and there was no relationship. The nature of the two families was different. The Li family belonged to a rich and powerful family, rich and powerful. There were people in high positions in the family, while the Lei family was a purely commercial family. Business was difficult and it took too long to accumulate, so wealthy families like the Li family seldom get involved. In terms of status, the Lei family was naturally far inferior to the Li family, but it was true that they were extremely rich. The reason why Lei Cheng laughed was because the Li family had nothing to do with the Lei family. Because all the big forces that have a relationship with Lei's family would eventually become Lei Cheng's elder brother's connections, not Lei Cheng's own connections. The conflict between the two brothers was very deep. Therefore, only those who have nothing to do with the Lei family could become Lei Cheng's own connections. Actually, I'm not part of the Li family. You should have heard that Ruobing doesn't have a good relationship with her family, and I've been helping her, so. Wu Chen was explaining when the phone rang suddenly. He picked up the phone and looked at it, frowned slightly, and answered, "I'm busy." It was Li Ruobing calling. "You play games with my 10 million? Li Ruobing asked. Wu Chen was taken aback for a moment, but Li Ruobing knew about it, which was actually not surprising, because Wang Zhuangyuan belonged to Li Ruotai, and he mobilized so many people to play games with him at once. Li Ruotai probably knew about it, so he should have told Li Ruobing. After being stunned for a while, Wu Chen suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Good call. Li Ruobing was here to send an assist. Raise. Wu Chen said directly. Raise. What raise? Ruobing, I don't want to explain anything to you now, just raise. Whoever loses, how about kneeling down and apologizing? Wu Chen said, deliberately mentioning Ruobing. Li Ruobing originally wanted to ask, but Wu Chen directly turned her back. Okay. She hung up after finishing speaking. She has such a stubborn personality. I don't need to clean up, Wu Chen muttered and put down the phone. You talk to Li Ruobing like that? Lei Cheng asked with his eyes wide open, startled. He didn't know Li Ruobing, which didn't mean he hadn't heard what kind of person this granddaughter of Li family was. Yet Wu Chen's tone was kneeling. What kind of background does his family have to dare to talk to Li Ruobing like that? Does he have an army at home? Chapter 51. If you are a man, you can't be cowardly, so fuck Ding Ruolong. Lei Cheng didn't think that Li Ruobing was so awesome personally. But one couldn't judge a person. Li Ruobing's background was more important than her character. She even pointed and scolded the old man of the Li family. The whole Li family couldn't stop her, and her mother knelt down and begged her. That's why she stayed in the country. Lei Cheng heard of it. So, what kind of background does he have? What kind of person? How could he suppress Li Ruobing like this? He had already begun to guess that Wu Chen must not only have a terrifying background, but also have extremely strong personal abilities and unique charisma. Nothing was missing. What's the matter, Boss Lei? I talked to my woman like that, what's the matter? Wu Chen looked at Lei Cheng puzzledly and asked with a smile. Lei Cheng didn't know what to ask. Ask about Wu Chen's background. Wu Chen kept hiding it and didn't tell him. Ah, you mean what I just said to her? Wu Chen seemed to understand what Lei Cheng was talking about, and smiled casually. It's nothing. We're just a couple. She is arguing with me. We made a bet and played it a bit too much, but it's really nothing more than between lovers. A woman with Li Ruobing's personality play around. How close were the two of them? Lei Cheng kept guessing in his heart, and then showed a cheerful smile, picked up the teacup and gestured, "Come on, little brother, drink tea. Please." Wu Chen also picked up the teacup. After drinking tea again, Lei Cheng wiped his mouth and said in a relaxed tone, "What bet? Can you tell me?" He is really not a very curious person. But Wu Chen's attitude towards Li Ruobing just now really scared him. So he wondered. Gambling, there's nothing to say. It has something to do with her company. Isn't her company being messed up all the time? I said that I would do it for her, but she disagreed. You may have heard of her character, especially being strong, and then we quarreled, but I know that she wants to protect me. Wu Chen paused, then asked Lei Cheng, Boss Lei, do you know Ding Ruolong? Yes, the Ding family. That bastard. Lei Cheng nodded and said, not surprised at all. Because from the moment he knew Wu Chen's woman was Li Ruobing, he knew who was looking for trouble for Li Ruobing. Li Ruobing's bet with Ding Ruolong, he didn't know, it was too private. But he knew that Ding Ruolong had been making trouble for Li Ruobing these past few years, hindering Li Ruobing's career, and had warned many people not to cooperate with Li Ruobing. He didn't seem to want Li Ruobing to succeed. Moreover, he also said that Li Ruobing was his woman, and that any man who got too close to Li Ruobing would be assaulted. The intention was obvious. He wanted to force Li Ruobing to marry him. The spokesperson's car accident was probably caused by Ding Ruolong. Lei Cheng said again. Yes, it's him. Wu Chen nodded, and said again, Ding Ruolong, I guess Boss Lei also understands that he is very paranoid and lawless. He will do anything to achieve his goals, has a very small mind, and is a very vicious person. I know, Lei Cheng quickly said, didn't he break the leg of the third youngest son of the Wei family? I almost got involved with the Wei family. That's why Ruobing doesn't let me get too involved in her company. Wu Chen spread his hands and said, I've been with Ruobing for a while. She was always afraid that Ding Ruolong would know about me, afraid that Ding Ruolong would go crazy and attack me regardless of the consequences, regardless of the cost, no matter who I am. In fact, I understand that she is doing it for my own good. But, Wu Chen's voice became serious, and he sat up straight. Boss Lei, tell me, I am a big man, and I know that Ding Ruolong has thoughts about Ruobing and wants to steal my woman. Can I be a coward? If I really don't care, am I still a man? If I really let him go, I'll just dig a hole and bury myself. Wu Chen seldom swore, but when it comes to people with different personalities and tempers, swearing was not necessarily a bad thing. Boom! Lei Cheng slapped the table fiercely, picked up the teacup and gestured, saying, That's right, brother. You were right. Come and drink. Replace wine with tea, we must drink one today. Be angry with me. If you're a man, you can't be cowardly. Fuck that Ding Ruolong. Wu Chen picked up his teacup and touched Lei Cheng. Lei Cheng really drank it all in one gulp, just like drinking. Of course Wu Chen also drank the whole cup. Come on, I'll pour it for you, brother. Continue to talk, and then. Lei Cheng saw that Wu Chen wanted to get the teapot, so he picked up the teapot first, and poured tea for Wu Chen and himself one after another. He has been hooked by Wu Chen's story. Wu Chen still hadn't said what he bet with Li Ruobing. Then, we quarrel, Wu Chen said in an unhurried tone. Ruobing was about to cry. I definitely couldn't just hide, and in the end, her temper was just right. She said, okay, let me help her and intervene in the company's affairs, but don't blame her if Ding Ruolong kills me. I said that if I was killed by Ding Ruolong, it would be considered Wu Chen's incompetence. Wu Chen imitated his tone, and then slowing down, he said, then she regretted it again, fearing that something might happen to me. In the end, we made a bet, which was also an experiment. She gave me full authority over the company's new product launch. It's in less than a month. She knows that Ding Ruolong must try every means to sabotage and prevent the press conference from being held smoothly, so my task is to solve the trouble and escort the press conference to go smoothly. If the press conference goes smoothly, then I will win. If something goes wrong and cannot be resolved, then she will win. I promise her. If something goes wrong and I can't solve it, then it means I am incompetent and I am trying to be brave. From now on, I will listen to her about everything. She told me to hold back, I will hold back. That's it. That's the bet. So I have been dealing with this matter recently. Yesterday I helped Ruobing and caught the traitor in the company that has long been bought by Ding Ruolong, and he has been lurking in the company to monitor her for several years. Is that so? Lei Cheng held the teacup in a tone of understanding, and put the teacup down again. No wonder you spend so much money playing games with me today, just because of this trouble. Yes. Wu Chen nodded and said again, money is money. Actually, I am more worried about Ruobing. Even losing the bet to me doesn't matter. Ruobing respects me very much, and she won't let me listen to her in everything in the future. But if the company's press conference really can't be held smoothly, I'm worried that Ruobing will have problems. All these years, before she met me, she endured too much pressure, and I can't make any more trouble. Good man. Lei Cheng gave Wu Chen a thumbs-up gesture and then seemed to remember suddenly. Brother, I can help with this matter. The spokesperson's matter must be resolved by you, right? Yes. Wu Chen smiled helplessly, but he did not lack confidence. Lei Cheng paused for a moment, his eyes flickered, he thought about it seriously, and then said, well, brother. Brother, I promised you before, I will find you a spokesperson, and I will definitely find one for you. I keep my word. This time, not only will I find one for you, I will also find you the best one. Just wait, I'll call now. After speaking, he picked up his phone and flipped through the address book, and quickly dialed a number. The phone didn't come through right away. Taking advantage of this gap, Lei Cheng shook the phone screen at Wu Chen, raised his eyebrows and smiled. Brother read it. The screen displayed, Baby Menying. He's calling Dao Menying. Chapter 52, The Car Accident 10 Years Ago. Wu Chen cooperated with Lei Cheng's show-off, and was a little surprised when he saw the notes on the screen. Hey, Godfather, the phone was connected, Wu Chen vaguely heard the sweet voice. Lei Cheng took the phone back and put it next to his ear. Dabao, have you ever thought about me? Ha 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 ha. Okay, stop complaining, you've only been popular for a few days, you can do whatever the director tells you to do. That's my brother, that's also for your own good. Wu Chen picked up the teacup, took a sip of the tea, and silently listened to the conversation between Lei Cheng and Dao Menying. Although he didn't know what Dao Menying said to Lei Cheng specifically, she must be pampering him. If there were other people present, such as fans of Dao Menying. If he was present and knew who this greasy, sloppy middle-aged fat man in front of Wu Chen was talking to and what he said, they might just break down and poke his own eyes. It was possible for some extreme personalities to jump directly from the building, and the brainless fans could do anything. Because, he's too unworthy. Dao Menying was a natural beauty who could reach 9 points according to Wu Chen's strict standards. She had fair skin and beautiful long legs. She had a good image and good temperament. She fit 99.9% of men's fantasies about their dream lover. But Dao Menying's benefactor who had been with her for 10 years, that was, Lei Cheng in front of Wu Chen, was so ordinary, greasy and wretched. The appearance of was not a problem, Lei Cheng's facial features were okay. Although he was fat, but that's not a problem, mainly because of his appearance and temperament. Really one heaven and one underground. Standing together, the two of them couldn't be described as a beauty matched with a beast, but more like a beautiful woman matched with a pile of stinky shit. Really, that was not an exaggeration at all. Lei Cheng gave people the impression at first glance that he was not even as good as a slightly normal ordinary person. However, feelings were feelings. Feelings could be actively created. Wu Chen knew that Lei Cheng did this on purpose. Even if money was not considered, Wu Chen still thought that it's not that Lei Cheng was not good enough for Dao Menying, but that Dao Menying was not good enough for Lei Cheng. If Lei Cheng hadn't been there, Dao Menying might have disappeared from the crowd long ago, and she might have become the taboo of a big boss by relying on her appearance. It would be impossible to show her face, and it would be even more impossible to become popular. Wu Chen had seen photos of Lei Cheng 10 years ago, and he had seen them many times in the Millennium Reincarnation. He knew that Lei Cheng 10 years ago was tall and thin. He was 32 years old, with a dignified appearance. Extraordinary bearing. It was the car accident that nearly killed him 10 years ago that changed him. Or, he took the initiative to put on a protective disguise for himself. He started to overeat, started to keep women, started to spend money, spent money to become a celebrity, and became rude. All he did was a disguise, to save himself from being killed. His past 10 years could be summed up in one word: forbearance. He had been enduring, waiting for a chance to give the opponent a fatal blow and make a comeback. Although he knew that he might not be able to wait in this lifetime. And the person who wanted to kill him was none other than his own brother, Lei Zhengwei's eldest son, Lei Yu. Lei Cheng was the loser in the cruel internal struggle of the big family. The car accident 10 years ago was arranged by Lei Yu. 3 people in the car died and 1 was seriously injured. Lei Cheng was the only one who survived, and among the dead was his original wife who he had been married to for 2 years. Lei Cheng never defeated his brother, not because he was not capable. In Wu Chen's view, both of them were excellent, at least they were evenly matched. And the reason why Lei Cheng couldn't beat his brother was because Lei Yu was 8 years older than him. It was the 1970s, and people generally got married early. Lei Zhengwei got married at the age of 18, and had his first child at the age of 19, which was Lei Yu. And when the second child Lei Cheng was born, Lei Zhengwei was already 27 years old. Lei Cheng's birth was an accident at the time. When Lei Cheng was still in the 6th grade of elementary school, Lei Yu had already graduated from university and started working in Hongfa Industrial. When Lei Cheng graduated from university, Lei Yu was already Lei Zhengwei's right-hand man and one of the cores of Hongfa Industrial. The age gap made the 2 brothers not close at all. Even, Lei Yu has always resented Lei Cheng, his younger brother of the same father and mother. This kind of resentment could be traced back to the day when Lei Cheng was just born. On that day, Lei Cheng's mother died in the operating room of the county hospital due to postpartum hemorrhage. She was not rescued. Of course, the past was not the real reason why the 2 brothers turned against each other 30 years later. Lei Cheng's car accident 10 years ago, in the final analysis, was because Lei Cheng had already established his prestige in the family business step by step. He was valued by Lei Zhengwei. Lei Zhengwei even said publicly at the shareholder meeting that after he retires, the company would be handed over to his 2 sons to jointly manage the company. Lei Cheng's rapid rise within Hongfa directly threatened Lei Yu's status. So to put it bluntly, the reason why the 2 turned against each other was because of the inheritance of family property in the future. After the car accident, Hongfa Industrial experienced a series of turmoil and personnel adjustments. Some people even disappeared directly. After Lei Cheng was discharged from the hospital, he broke into Lei Yu's villa with a gun, and almost killed Lei Yu, but was stopped. And in the 4th month after the car accident, Hong Fa was calm inside, and Lei Yu was fine. There was not enough evidence to prove that the mastermind behind the car accident was Lei Yu, it's just rumored so. But there were some things that didn't need evidence at all, everyone knew it well. After all, Lei Zhengwei still turned to the eldest son. In fact, he was not partial to that extent. He was considering the family business. At that time, Lei Yu was 40 years old and served as the deputy general manager of Hongfa, while Lei Cheng was 32 years old, which was his 10th year in Hongfa. Lei Zhengwei, who was the general manager of Hongfa at the time, was 59 years old. He didn't know that he would still be able to do it himself for a few more years. After all, he was going to hand over the position of general manager to his son. Eldest son, youngest son, he could only choose one, give up the other. It was impossible for the 2 brothers to join hands again. In the end, he chose the elder son who was more mature, older, more connected and more courageous. This was the whole reason why Lei Cheng became what he was now. Dormant, tolerable, waiting for the opportunity. In fact, Wu Chen didn't pay much attention to Lei Cheng in the Millennium Reincarnation. He was an outsider in Donghai, and he was always low-key and cared about his privacy. But as Wu Chen investigated more and more billionaires in the East China Sea, he gradually discovered that it seemed that many of them had private contacts with Lei Cheng. In private, there was no communication on the surface, and they would not appear in any public social occasions together, but in private, they met a lot. But there was no business relationship. Very weird. Wu Chen felt that something was wrong, so he investigated Lei Cheng thoroughly, and then he knew Lei Cheng's experience. During the investigation, he even went to Weishi City, and during the consecutive, July 7th, followed Lei Yu, finally kidnapped him, and asked for details. Weishi was not far from the East China Sea, more than 400 kilometers away, and could be reached in just over 2 hours by high-speed train. Wu Chen found out everything. Ha 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 ha, he didn't know what Dao Menying said again. Lei Cheng laughed a few more times, and then said, okay, Dabao, it's like this, there's something, please take a leave of absence. Go back to Donghai as soon as possible, and I will put a word with the director. Yes, it's very urgent, I got you an endorsement, cosmetics. We're not afraid of breaking the contract, I'll just pay them a loss. Well, okay, come on kiss me, so good. Hang up. Lei Cheng hung up the phone, looked up at Wu Chen and said with a smile, she booked the earliest ticket to fly domestically. It will take more than 4 hours, there is no direct flight to the East China Sea, she has to go to the capital for a connecting flight, it is probably 11 or 12 in the middle of the night. How about it? Brother, I was not bragging to you, was I? Ha 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 ha. After Lei Cheng finished speaking, he laughed again. Nailed it. Awesome. Wu Chen smiled, looking at Lei Cheng with another flash of eyes. Since Lei Cheng is so sincere, he could tell him something about Lei Yu. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chapter 53. Making friends with me is the most correct decision in your life. In fact, according to Wu Chen's original idea, he would eventually complete the exchange of interests with Lei Cheng. Getting to know each other by playing games was just an introduction. Although Lei Cheng had a lot of women, and there were so many female stars he had praised, the one he loved the most was Dao Menying, who was adopted at the beginning. Just relying on those private chats while playing games was not enough for Lei Cheng to call Dao Menying back. Wu Chen once set a time for himself. 2 hours. 2 hours after meeting Lei Cheng, everything was settled. His plan was to use some information about his elder brother to exchange for Dao Menying to endorse them. But Wu Chen really didn't expect it. In less than an hour he was done. Or that Li Ruobing sent an assist, and it was a divine assist. When Wu Chen had a short conversation with Li Ruobing, the few words he said directly changed Lei Cheng's perception of him. Wu Chen was originally hired by Li Ruobing to help Li Ruobing find a spokesperson, but he took advantage of the situation and took advantage of the situation. If it wasn't for that phone call, Wu Chen felt that he might have to communicate with Lei Cheng for more than an hour before he could deal with him. That phone call changed more than that. It also completely changed the relationship and positioning of Wu Chen and Lei Cheng after they became friends. Dao Menying had a cosmetics endorsement, an exclusive endorsement. That was to say, she could accept the same type of endorsement. Accepting was a breach of contract. To lose money. Although her current endorsement was the next one 3 years ago when she was not so popular, the endorsement fee was not very high at that time, and the liquidated damages were only 30 million. Lei Cheng just said on the phone that he would pay for breach of contract. In other words, he called Dao Menying back to endorse them, not that he just made a phone call and arranged it, just doing Wu Chen a favor. He lost money. In order to help Wu Chen, he had to pay tens of millions, and he had no intention of asking Wu Chen after the phone call. This was not something normal people could do. It's no small favor. Why? Because now he already wanted to take the initiative to make friends with Wu Chen. Lei Cheng had been quietly making friends with some rich and powerful people in private for 10 years. He loved to have people owe him favors. Very understanding of the world. In the past 10 years, he had secretly made friends with many people in the East China Sea. What he once said, "There is nothing I can't handle in the East China Sea," was really not bragging. Stay away from the family, pretend to be crazy, make friends secretly, wait for the opportunity, and plot a counterattack. In the past 10 years, he had not pretended for a day, and his life was not easy. The city was extremely scary. However, he did not make friends with everyone, such as Li Ruotai. Not because Li Ruotai was not strong enough, but because Li Ruotai was too public. In private, however, he had a good relationship with Lu Guangnian and had known him for a long time. Lu Guangnian loved to make friends. Perhaps among Lu Guangnian's many friends, Lei Cheng was not particularly eye-catching, but he definitely impressed Lu Guangnian. Secretly made friends with important people who could be used in the future, he already felt that Wu Chen was a big person he could make friends with. He didn't even know what background Wu Chen had. It was Li Ruobing's call that made him misjudge. Wu Chen really never thought about it before, it would be this kind of result. After all, they just met for the first time. The exchange of interests and the exchange of contacts were enough. Now it was Lei Cheng who was active, very active and eager, and wanted to become friends with him. "Little brother, what's wrong with you?" Lei Cheng asked, seeing Wu Chen staring at him without speaking for a few seconds. "We are really destined," Wu Chen said with a smile. "Of course. Ha ha ha, come, let's have a toast to our special fate." Lei Cheng laughed loudly. With tea instead of wine, the two drank a cup. "Boss Lei, there is something." Wu Chen put down his teacup and spoke again. "Oh, what is Boss Lei? We are so destined, is it too much to call me brother?" Lei Cheng gestured with his hands. "Not too much. Of course it's too much." Lei Cheng was not only a few years older than Wu Chen, but 20 years older than Wu Chen. He was only 2 years younger than Wu Chen's father. Because of knowing Lei Cheng, no matter how good Lei Cheng's acting was, Wu Chen could guess his thoughts and feel his eagerness to establish his own network. "Okay, brother Lei." Wu Chen smiled. "Okay, brother Wu, what did you want to say just now?" "Say it," Lei Cheng said, "brother Wu," in a smooth manner. "It's a reminder." Wu Chen suddenly lost his smile and became very serious. "Brother Lei, actually, when I first came to see you, I thought about it. You promised to find me a spokesperson. I know, with your contacts in the entertainment industry, brother, even if you find me a front line, it's just a matter of a phone call. But you directly asked your woman, a popular superstar, to come out and endorse products for my woman's company. I didn't expect it." Lei Cheng didn't understand what Wu Chen wanted to express. "What's wrong with this? Don't you think it's enough? I didn't expect Menning to be as popular as she is now, so why not?" Lei Cheng asked Wu Chen back. "It's not impossible, but," Wu Chen paused, and said seriously, "you will get involved in the entanglement between me, Ruobing, Ding Ruolong, Ding family, and Li family. You will directly offend Ding Ruolong and the Ding family. Although the same method, he would not be stupid enough to use it a second time. Dao Menning is too popular now. If something happens, it will cause a huge disturbance, and the public opinion can't be suppressed, so she will be fine. But, boss, what about you? That lunatic Ding Ruolong can really do anything." Wu Chen explained the situation completely, not so much as a reminder to Lei Cheng, but as a warning. Regarding this point, Wu Chen repeatedly thought about it, so he had to make it clear in advance. Because if he didn't make it clear, and Lei Cheng was suddenly involved in these messes of Li family, then Wu Chen would not only not make friends with him, but may offend him. Making it clear was another matter. Holding the teacup in his hand, Lei Cheng squinted his eyes. He understood what Wu Chen meant. "The decision is up to you. Brother Lei, actually, I don't want you to get involved in these troubles, because it has nothing to do with you, so, you can call Dao Menning again. She doesn't have to come back. Let's change people." After Wu Chen finished speaking, he looked at Lei Cheng calmly. He gave Lei Cheng a chance, and at the same time, he wanted to see how much Lei Cheng's sincerity was. Boom! Lei Cheng suddenly slammed his teacup on the table, and said angrily, "What the hell? Brother Wu, do you look down on me? Do you think I will be afraid of that shit Ding Ruolong? I can go to the fucker. As for Dao Menning, I will ask her to report at Symphony early tomorrow morning. The contract must be signed. The spokesperson must be her. If Ding Ruolong dares to seek trouble with me, I will tear him apart. Anger, mania, get angry, regardless of the consequences." Lei Cheng's acting skills were really good. After all, it's been 10 years. He made a decision. For the sake of Wu Chen, Li Ruobing and even Li Ruotai's connections, he wanted to join, even if it meant offending Ding Ruolong. It's just, he used his own unique way to express these. The expression of emotion was actually deliberate. "Brother Lei, calm down, sit down, I didn't look down on you. I made you angry, okay. Since Brother Lei don't care about Ding Ruolong, then I will not take the trouble to persuade you. Wu Chen, after comforting Lei Cheng and letting him sit down, looked at Lei Cheng again with deep eyes. He said with a smile, "Brother Lei, I will let you understand that making friends with me is the most correct thing in your life. I decided, we, really, are so destined." Lei Cheng felt that something was wrong with Wu Chen. His words were weird, and his tone and eyes seemed to be alluding to something. "Brother, you mean fate. What is it?" Lei Cheng was not sure, although he mentioned fate first, but Wu Chen mentioned it too many times. Wu Chen didn't answer Lei Cheng, but picked up the phone and typed quickly with one hand. "Look at the text message," Wu Chen said to Lei Cheng while pressing send. Lei Cheng picked up the phone and looked. It was a text message from Wu Chen, which contained a string of phone numbers. "Find the owner of this number and catch him. He will tell you all the truth about your car accident 10 years ago." Wu Chen smiled. Lei Cheng stood up abruptly. Chapter 54. Brother Wu, brother owes you this time. Lei Cheng suddenly got up and looked at Wu Chen. Wu Chen mentioned before that he was afraid of being killed by his brother. At that time, Lei Cheng guessed that Wu Chen was the core member of a super family, otherwise it would be impossible to know. This matter was inside Hongfa, and only a small number of people who knew the company's senior management dared to guess that way, and Hongfa completely blocked the news afterwards. If someone from the outside world can know or hear a few words, they must be extraordinary. Afterwards, Li Ruobing took the initiative to call, but Wu Chen directly turned back. This was almost an indirect proof that Lei Cheng's guess was right, and Wu Chen was absolutely extraordinary. After that, neither of them brought up that little thing about Lei family. Lei Cheng's final impression of Wu Chen, he felt that Wu Chen was a promising young man with a big background, great skills and strong means. He didn't think that Wu Chen could have any in-depth understanding of his family's affairs, at most he had heard of some things. But, now Wu Chen directly gave him a mobile phone number. And told him that as long as he caught the owner of the mobile phone number, he could know the truth about his car accident 10 years ago. Lei Cheng couldn't calm down. The car accident 10 years ago was the most exciting thing for him. "You said it. We too. Really. We are destined." Facing Lei Cheng's staring gaze, Wu Chen mentioned, "Destiny," again. Lei Cheng's eyes flickered. He thought, didn't speak, didn't say anything, just sat down slowly. Until now, only then did he finally understand what Wu Chen's repeated, "destiny," meant. The two can meet this time because they played the same private server game together. And fate. It didn't mean that when Wu Chen met Lei Cheng, he found out that he knew Lei Cheng. Rather, Wu Chen not only knew Lei Cheng, and just happened to know something about their Lei family. It could even help Lei Cheng. This was called fate. Lei Cheng recalled Wu Chen's subtle expression when he first entered the door. He knew that he was wrong at the time, and it wasn't just because he happened to know him that he showed that expression. But not only know him, but also know things. After thinking about it, Lei Cheng turned his gaze to the phone screen again. "That cell phone number. Actually, I didn't want to get involved in your Lei family's affairs." Wu Chen naturally raised the teacup, but didn't drink the tea and continued, "Your family's affairs. Even if we outsiders know something, it's not easy to interfere. But, Brother Lei, today, I feel that God is unfair to you. You are such a good person. You lost your mother when you were born, your wife died in a car accident, or murdered, and you have to experience the pain of brotherhood." Wu Chen shook his head and sighed as he spoke, as if he really felt unfair for Lei Cheng. He took a sip of tea, put down the teacup and said, "You helped me today, we met by chance, you helped me a lot, then I will repay you." That mobile phone number was originally used for transactions, to change the spokesperson. But now it had become the feedback that Lei Cheng took the initiative to help. Wu Chen would not owe Lei Cheng any favors. He would only make Lei Cheng owe him favors. Lei Cheng could hear from Wu Chen's words just now, that Wu Chen really knew a lot about him, even pointing out the fact that he had no mother when he was born. That was 42 years ago. He glanced at the mobile phone number in the short message again, then raised his head and asked Wu Chen, "Whose phone number?" "Who?" Wu Chen didn't say it directly. Lei Cheng was silent for a moment, tapped the screen, forwarded the text message, and forwarded it to his trusted confidant. The next thing he's going to do is call. That's right, Wu Chen said again at this time. This person has changed his name, and he has 2 ID cards. Different ID numbers. The original ID information has long been used by him, so you'd better let your people check his household registration and get the photo he uses for registration now. Although 10 years have passed, you should be able to recognize him. Wu Chen said, paused and said again, I want to remind you, before you find him, don't let anyone make this call. The people who know this number can be counted on one hand. Startle the snake. He will run. Even overnight, he might go abroad. Lei Cheng clutched the phone and listened to Wu Chen's whole sentence without saying a word, and finally dialed the number. The call went through immediately. I just sent you a number, please ask someone to check it immediately. The information of the owner of this number, all the information, should be kept confidential. It is best to get his photo for me first. It doesn't matter if other information is sent later. Lei Cheng said. After finishing, he hung up the phone and looked at Wu Chen. A cheerful smile suddenly appeared on the expressionless face. The smile was very natural, and he said casually, You're so great, brother. No wonder you can subdue Li Ruobing so well. It's nothing. Wu Chen smiled. To be honest with my brother, how do you know about our Lei family? It seems to be very clear. Lei Cheng asked again. He was particularly good at creating a relaxed atmosphere, and he could do it with a single expression and a smile. Brother Lei, you also know that there are some things that I can't just say. It's not that I'm hiding it from you sincerely, but, you should be able to understand. Wu Chen was a bit cryptic. But because of the foreshadowing before, Lei Cheng didn't think it's a sham. Instead, he understood. Behind Wu Chen, there was another force, or in other words, a super powerful force. Obviously there were some secrets, so there were some things that could not be said indiscriminately. But in fact, there was a fart force behind Wu Chen. His family ran a ramen restaurant. But Lei Cheng felt that way, and Wu Chen knew that he would definitely check himself and his family background in the future. However, after he knew about his family situation, Wu Chen believed Lei Cheng would think that all the information he found were false. It was deliberately arranged by Wu Chen in order to prevent being investigated. He might continue to investigate, but he would never be able to find out the background behind Wu Chen. Because it didn't exist. And the more he couldn't find out, the more he would feel that Wu Chen's background was more terrifying than he imagined. With the image of Wu Chen in his heart, it would become more mysterious and taller. I understand, Tisk. Your family is more. Lei Cheng didn't finish his sentence, and then changed his voice. Forget it. Let's talk about something else. Oh, Brother Wu, I heard that last night, someone was engaged with old Lu and he was about to be beaten up. However, he was smoothed out with a few words, saying that it was Li Ruobing's boyfriend. Was that you? The old Lu he was talking about was Lu Guangnian. The news spread, and the breaking point was that Lu Guangnian had smoked his beloved wife, which made it spread throughout the East China Sea business district in just one day. Yes, it's me, Wu Chen smiled, it's all rumors. Brother Lu and I had a little misunderstanding yesterday, but we made it clear. It's fine. Then the two chatted casually. It's these things in the East China Sea, whose business, whose relationship, and so on. Lei Cheng intended to test Wu Chen, but about these things in Donghai, let alone Lei Cheng who stayed in Donghai for nearly 10 years, even if he stayed in Donghai for 100 years, he wouldn't figure out Wu Chen. Thump ling. Lei Cheng's phone rang. He picked up his phone, clicked on it, and his expression suddenly changed. Veins popped up on his forehead quickly, and bloodshot eyes even appeared in his eyes. Very angry, but he was suppressing it. For a long time, he stared at the phone for a long time. Brother Wu. Lei Cheng slowly raised his eyes to look at Wu Chen, and said very seriously, this time, brother owes you. I don't care about mountains of swords and seas of fire in the future. Just say a word. If your brother can do it for you, I'll cut off my head for you. Wu Chen knew why he reacted so strongly. He received a message from the owner of that phone number. Probably a photo, because he said he wanted a photo first. This was easy to check, as long as there was a relationship. One could find the photo of the ID card in the household registration system. He recognized who that man was. It was the same murderer who drove a truck and hit a car with 3 people dead and 1 seriously injured and killed his wife. Chapter 55. There is another brother. Lei Cheng would never forget that night 10 years ago. The roaring large truck, the dazzling high-beam headlights, the accident came very suddenly. At that time, the Mercedes-Benz S-Class that Lei Cheng was riding was hit by the large truck and rolled over 10 meters. After more than 10 seconds later, a fire broke out and it exploded. Lei Cheng was sitting in the back row with his wife, and the driver and bodyguard were in the front row. 4 people, 3 died directly at the scene of the car accident. The reason Lei Cheng didn't die was because he was so lucky. During the rolling of the car, because Lei Cheng was not wearing a seat belt, he was thrown out and fell on the side of the road. Although there were more than 10 fractures on his body, and his neck was severely pierced by a branch, he was only injured. When the ambulance arrived, he had lost a lot of blood. But he didn't die after all. He spent 17 days in the intensive care unit and nearly 3 months in the advanced care unit. He came home alive. During Lei Cheng's hospitalization, there were constant turmoil and personnel turmoil in Hongfa Industrial. Lei Cheng already had some public conflicts with Lei Yu, and the power struggle had been going on for half a year, but they hadn't been openly hostile with each other. So at that time, many people in Hongfa were spreading rumors that Lei Yu did it. Lei Cheng also cooperated with the police to make many records during his hospitalization. He also understood the progress of the police investigation, and his cronies would also report to him regularly. So he knew that no one was obstructing the investigation. No one dared to obstruct the investigation, because whoever hindered was the most suspected. However, it was never found out who did it. After the big truck hit an accident, it escaped. The car was found on the night of the incident. It was a stolen vehicle that the owner had reported to the police 2 days before the incident. The original owner was interrogated overnight, but was eventually ruled out and acquitted. It's not him. At that time, it was impossible to find out who was the person who actually drove the big truck to cause the accident. The only clue the police had for the driver of the truck was the pictures taken by the traffic monitoring station along the way before the accident, which showed the driver's clothing and appearance inside the front windshield of the vehicle. Male, black leather jacket, black peaked cap, white mask. Although the face was captured, the image was relatively blurry, and only a pair of eyes could be seen, so it was impossible to tell who it was. Lei Cheng knew that his elder brother Lei Yu was behind the scenes, although there was no proof. But he was so firm in his opinion. Because no one had a deep hatred with him, small conflicts would not result in an assassination attempt on him. Moreover, the company was not his business, so it could not be a competitor. Moreover, Lei Cheng still remembered that just 4 days before the car accident, he and his elder brother Lei Yu had a fierce quarrel in the office. Lei Cheng remembered that at the last moment, his eldest brother Lei Yu looked into his eyes before leaving the office. It was a look that wished that he would die immediately. After being discharged from the hospital, Lei Cheng had a lot of violent behaviors, but they were all stopped. He began to investigate in person again, not only checked all the cronies of his eldest brother Lei Yu, but also checked inside the company. Even those who wanted to curry favor to his big brother. He knew his elder brother very well. He knew that his elder brother only trusted people who had been with him for a long time and who know the bottom line. Act boldly, but with great caution. So this time, he wouldn't have hired outsiders or professional killers to deal with him. That risk was really too great. Lei Cheng had a clear direction of investigation at the time, but after nearly a month of hard work, he found nothing. It could only be said that there was a little clue, but after all the investigations, it was useless. In the end, when there was really no other way, Lei Cheng used a very stupid but very useful method. Comparing the photos, just looking at the eyes. He used the traffic surveillance footage provided by the police to compare the company's personnel files. They could only see the eyes, so they only compared the eyes. If the eyes were similar, they would be suspected. Focus on comparing personnel transfers and resignations in the months after the car accident. He found it. This person was the deputy director of the security department of Hongfa Group when the car accident happened. His name was Shang Shungjin. On the 5th day after the car accident, Shang Shungjin was suddenly transferred. He left the group head office and went to the No. 2 Hongfa manufacturing plant in Baiyue Town under the jurisdiction of the group as the security manager. This was regarded as being punished. 17 days after the car accident, Shang Shungjin suddenly resigned. The reason was that he thought he was clearly right, but he was transferred from the head office, and he couldn't stand it. And the 17th day after the car accident happened to be the time when Lei Cheng woke up from the intensive care unit. It could also be a coincidence. What really made Lei Cheng think that Shang Shungjin was the murderer was, he disappeared after leaving the job. It's as if the world evaporated suddenly. All of a sudden, he's gone. Even his ex-wife and son vanished. Shang Shungjin was not the only person who left his job after the car accident, nor was he the only one who disappeared. But he was the only one that so many clues and doubts pointed to. Similar eyes, sudden resignation by coincidence, mysterious disappearance as if evaporated. And, he had been flattering his elder brother. Lei Cheng didn't think that Shang Shungjin was murdered, because Lei Yu wouldn't do that to someone who did great things for him. Doing things for him and then being killed and silenced, who would to do things for him in the future. So at that time, he thought that Shang Shungjin might have taken a sum of money and went away. Lei Cheng no longer remembered how long he had been chasing Shang Shungjin, nor when he gave up, because he couldn't find any clues, so he had no choice but to give up in the end. When he gave up, he even suspected that he might be wrong. The person might have really been silenced, buried in an unknown barren mountain, and it was impossible for him to find him in his life. 10 years. Before meeting Wu Chen today, Lei Cheng still had no news about Shang Shungjin, nor did he have any evidence to testify against his elder brother. Until this moment, Lei Cheng finally saw Shang Shungjin again. Although it was only a photo, although Shang Shungjin was fatter than before and his face had changed, Lei Cheng still recognized him at a glance. Lei Cheng, who was sitting opposite to Wu Chen, had a feeling that God opened his eyes. He felt as if an invisible hand of fate had suddenly sent Wu Chen to him. Lei Cheng had been waiting for an opportunity to make a comeback and avenge his wife, but it was almost impossible to appear. The appearance of Wu Chen turned this impossible into possibility. Brother, you can mention anything in the future. Don't treat me as an outsider. From now on, you will be my brother. Lei Cheng didn't wait for Wu Chen to say anything, and made a promise to Wu Chen, and then stood up suddenly. Brother, I have to take a step ahead and contact you by phone. As he spoke, Lei Cheng hurried out holding his phone. Just a few meters away from the room, he looked at the photos on the phone screen twice. Wu Chen watched Lei Cheng leave with a strange expression. It's not that Lei Cheng's behavior was weird, but Wu Chen thought that his new life had only started 2 days ago, and he had 2 more brothers. Yesterday was Lu Guangnian, and today was Lei Cheng. He wondered how many brothers like them he would have in the future. Lei Cheng left. Wu Chen was not in a hurry to leave. He picked up the teacup, took a sip of tea slowly, and after putting down the teacup, he picked up the phone again. He made a call. Li Ruobing. Chapter 56. What a coincidence. After the matter is settled, Wu Chen had to tell Li Ruobing about the situation, and asked her to bring 20 million yuan, and they could talk about it after kneeling down and apologizing. Even if Wu Chen was not sure that he would go to Li Ruobing's company tomorrow morning, Dao Menying would definitely go there, so Li Ruobing had to prepare for the reception in advance. Beep, beep, sorry, the number you dialed is temporarily unavailable. Wu Chen listened to the notification tone and looked at the phone screen with a frown. There had been 2 beeps, which meant that the connection had been made. That meant she hung up. No answer. Hanging up the phone. Are you angry? Wu Chen blinked and smiled. Thump. Wu Chen's cell phone vibrated suddenly. He had received a text message. Wu Chen casually clicked on it and read it. It was from Li Ruobing. The content was just 3 words. In a meeting. Meeting again. Li Ruobing had a meeting in the morning and another meeting in the afternoon, which was actually normal. The company had just had such a big incident, so it was reasonable to hold more meetings and organize the company's senior management to discuss countermeasures. But, when Li Ruobing had a meeting in the morning, Wu Chen called, but she answered. This afternoon, she didn't pick up. Apparently, her mentality changed. When Wu Chen asked for work and a bet, she agreed. He said that he wanted activity funds, and he asked for 10 million yuan. She couldn't understand him. Woman. Wu Chen smiled and picked up the teacup again. Very happy. Because it's good. Very good. The more Li Ruobing couldn't understand his behavior, the better. The mysterious and uncontrollable feeling came from this way. And the more she couldn't understand him, the more surprised she would be. The more shocking it was, the more incredible it would be. He wondered if Li Ruobing would obediently kneel in the corner of the wall, pinch her earlobes with both hands, and say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong," like a daughter who made a mistake. It's really interesting to think about it. Wu Chen drank 2 more sips of tea, thought, picked up the phone again, and dialed Wang Zhuangyuan's number. It connected immediately. Mr. Wu. Wang Zhuangyuan spoke first. Who told Tai about my playing games? Wu Chen asked directly. He knew, he could even be said to be 100% sure. It couldn't be Wang Zhuangyuan who took the initiative to tell Li Ruotai. If he took the initiative to tell Li Ruotai about Wu Chen's nonsense, it would be against his original intention to have a relationship with Wu Chen. But Li Ruotai must have known about it first. The people on Donghai Road had no direct relationship with Li Ruobing, so Li Ruotai could only have known about it first. So, who said that? Wang Zhuangyuan should know, because after Li Ruotai knew the situation, he would definitely check with Wang Zhuangyuan. Mr. Wu, he belongs to Zhao Guaizi. Wang Zhuangyuan said quickly. I suddenly mobilized so many little brothers to the internet cafe near Huahei. Young Master Li called me later to ask. Of course, I could only tell the truth. Well, okay, it's all right. Wu Chen said, and hung up after speaking. In fact, he just wanted to know about it casually. It was almost as he guessed. In this matter, no one was malicious to him. Zhao Guaizi was guarding against Wang Zhuangyuan, thinking that Wang Zhuangyuan was going to do something. Wu Chen stayed in the tea house for more than 10 minutes before leaving. Although he left later, of course he didn't have to pay, it was all on Lei Cheng's account. The Lamborghini hit the road. Wu Chen was planning to go home. Originally, he had his own plan to make friends today, but because of the unexpected situation of Li Ruobing's company, he gave up the original plan and changed the goal to Lei Cheng. Now most of the day passed, and the remaining time was not enough for him to execute his plan perfectly. And so, he just wanted to go home, and get some exercise. Temporarily changing the dating target. In fact, to him, this was neither good nor bad, and it didn't affect anything. There were still many contacts worth making, so who to make friends with first, and who to make friends with later, except for a few specific contacts, the order did not matter. And it was worth mentioning that, taking the current East China Sea as an example, if he wanted to classify your connections into one level, then the Li family siblings, Lu Guangnian, and even Mu Qianchen's father, Mu Sihai, all belong to the top connections. The special thing about Mu Sihai was, to judge whether a person's relationship was strong or not, sometimes it was not by how much money he had but by what kind of business he was in. Lu Guangnian's business was real estate, and his relationship with the East China Sea was not so bad. And Mu Sihai was in the pharmaceutical industry, and the water in the pharmaceutical industry was deeper than that of the real estate industry, so although Mu Sihai's net worth was not as good as Lu Guangnian's, his connections, relationships and energy were really not worse than Lu Guangnian's. And Lei Cheng, who he made friends today. As far as Donghai was concerned, he should be regarded as a top-level connection. Although he and Lu Guangnian were brothers in private, he was not a native of Donghai, and he did not have the powerful background of a super big family like the Li family. But, this was just the dormant Lei Cheng. He who was in forbearance already had such a status. After all, even the current him had billions of dollars in assets. And Wu Chen had already given him key information. He could choose not to bear it anymore, and he would definitely start planning to mess with his brother and seize power. And once he took Lei Yu down, he would be the only heir of the Lei family. Lei Zhengwei has no choice. He would definitely return to the head office of Hongfa Group with a kingly attitude. He would inherit the entire family business. At that time, Lei Cheng would no longer be Donghai's sub-top contact. His power and energy would completely surpass Lu Guangnian and others. It was estimated that by then in Donghai, the only business family that could still compete with him will be the richest family in Donghai. Wu Chen was looking forward to the arrival of this day, and at the same time he believed that with the means of his second brother, that day would not be far away. Dash. Red light at the intersection ahead. Wu Chen, who was driving the Lamborghini, started to slow down, and finally stopped slowly, waiting for the red light. There were still a few cars in front of Wu Chen, all of which were waiting for the red light to turn green. And behind Wu Chen, there was a private car. There was a distance of 20 meters from his car. The space was very large. There was no other special reason, just because Wu Chen was driving a Lamborghini, and the private car behind was afraid of being rear-ended. If he touched a Lamborghini, if it was a little serious, he couldn't afford the compensation even if the car was sold, so he had to go home and sell the house. Wu Chen suddenly noticed that the cars on the left side of the driveway and the front left looked familiar, and the license plate numbers were familiar. He turned his head to observe, looked back along the left lane, and found that there was a convoy of more than 10 black Mercedes-Benz, including Mercedes-Benz S, Mercedes-Benz Business, and Mercedes-Benz Off-Road. Even the license plate number was consecutive. Publicity. It could be said to be particularly publicized. It could even be called swagger. Wu Chen knew whose team it is. Not only he knew, but everyone with a little knowledge in Donghai knew that this was the team of Su Ruiwen, the chairman of Donghai Jinfu Jewelry Group and the richest man in Donghai. This convoy often appeared on the streets of Donghai, but not every day, and usually only when there were important events. Wu Chen turned his head and looked to the rear left. There were more than 10 cars in the convoy, and the main car was in the middle. At the moment, the person sitting in the car was either Su Ruiwen, the richest man in the East China Sea, or Su Qingying, the richest daughter in the East China Sea. What a coincidence! Wu Chen muttered to himself, and thought about it again. What a coincidence! Now that met, how could he miss this kind of fate? Shift to reverse, back up. Since the rear car didn't dare to get too close to the Lamborghini, Wu Chen had enough space to back up. After backing up more than 10 meters, he was parallel to the middle of the Su family team. The main car was on the left of the Lamborghini. Wu Chen turned his head to look again. The main car was a black Mercedes-Benz Maybach, which was the same as Li Ruobing's. It's not that rich people have similar tastes, but this car was formal enough and business-like. No one drove this car in private. The rear right window of the Maybach was half blocked by the sunshade. One could see a side face that looked like a fairy. Although the side face was covered by wavy and long hair, it couldn't block her beauty at all. The young woman with a beauty score of 9.5 points in the entire Donghai could be counted on one hand, and this woman was one of them. Su Qingying. Chapter 57. When is the bright moon? Looking at Su Qingying's side face, Wu Chen suddenly felt nostalgic, and remembered what he had done to Su Qingying again and again in the 1,000-year reincarnation. In his impression of all his women, Su Qingying belonged to the one with a deep impression. The deep impression did not come from her appearance. Because Wu Chen had seen too many beautiful women, this was the reason for his strict scoring standards. When choosing a woman, appearance could only be regarded as a basic condition and not the most important condition. It's not that she was beautiful that Wu Chen was nostalgic. Most of the women he slept were one-time thing, and he would never touch them again. He also never touched the altered face. This was also the reason why he slept with Li Ruobing hundreds of times in reincarnation. Because of Li Ruobing's character and ability, Wu Chen would have another sense of accomplishment, a feeling that even a woman like Li Ruobing could be manipulated by him. And Su Qingying. The reason why Wu Chen was particularly impressed by her was because she was not only beautiful, but she had duplicity. Her inner and outer appearance could be called two extremes. Just like Li Ruobing, in the eyes of the public, both Su Qingying and Li Ruobing were strong women. Moreover, she was an only child, so she would definitely inherit the family business in the future, and she would even have the opportunity to become the richest woman in the entire country in the future. But Li Ruobing's image of a strong woman, her strong personality, and domineering style were 90% true. She was really a strong master from the bottom of her heart. Su Qingying was not. Her inside, let's put it this way, among the beautiful women Wu Chen had seen, Su Qingying had the greatest contrast between inside and outside, and could be regarded as one of the most obedient and docile women. She had a problem. Su Qingying, who was reading the interview in the car, suddenly turned her head, as if she had noticed Wu Chen's gaze. She looked out first, and then looked a little lower, because the Lamborghini was a sports car with a low body. The four eyes were facing each other. Su Qingying saw him. It was a well-dressed strange young man driving a Lamborghini. He was looking at her. He seemed to be a young rich second generation, and she didn't know whose family he was from. Wu Chen smiled politely. Su Qingying also smiled politely. The smile appeared and disappeared quickly. Then she raised her hand and completely closed the sunshade. She smiled as a courtesy to him. She was taught to smile back with a smile, but that's it, she didn't want to be looked at. The lights at the intersection ahead changed and vehicles could pass. The Su family caravan went on the road and went straight through the intersection, while Wu Chen turned left at the intersection. Of course Wu Chen would not follow them. He could also guess where the Su family team were going. He guessed that they would go to a press conference or a media meeting. The day before yesterday, Jinfu Jewelry had a big robbery in a store in Donghai. Although the case was solved that day, there were still many things to deal with in the follow-up. After turning around the intersection, Wu Chen picked up the phone again, entered the number, and sent a text message to the other party. Since he met her by such a coincidence, it's probably necessary to tease her first. In the middle of the convoy, in a Mercedes-Benz Maybach, Su Qingying, who had completely closed the sunshade, was still reading the interview manuscript. In a while, the reporter would ask her many questions, including the security issues of Jinfu Group, and the compensation for the injured shop assistants in the robbery, etc. Whatever the reporter would ask, it was written in the manuscript, so it was naturally given to her in advance. Thump! The phone rang suddenly, and there was the sound of a message. Su Qingying frowned expressionlessly, took out her phone and looked at it. It was a message from an unknown number. The content was, "When is the bright moon? It's you. It's the first time I met you in person, and you are much more beautiful than the news." Su Qingying's pupils shrank violently. Her extraordinary family background and good family education made her rarely reveal overly intense expressions. She was always calm, restrained, and polite. But at this moment, her expression really changed. Even a little frightened. At first glance, there was nothing wrong with this passage, and in fact there was nothing wrong with it. What Su Qingying cared about was not what was said, but the first 5 words, "When is the bright moon?" This was Su Qingying's screen name. But not her usual screen name. She only used this screen name in one place. It was a very different private forum. Naturally, it was an anonymous registration. Su Qingying had seen many posts on that forum, but she seldom replied, and she only posted once. In that post, she expressed her inner confusion and exposed her heartfelt feelings on the forum. This was a very secretive matter for Su Qingying. Outside the internet, only she knew about it. And on the internet, it was impossible for anyone to know that, "When is the bright moon" is her. When she registered her account, she did not fill in her real information, and even the email address to receive the verification code was registered temporarily. The most important was, she didn't seem special on that forum. There were too many people like her. She just read but doesn't talk. She rarely posted and replied, and she was simply inconspicuous. So logically speaking, she felt that this could be a secret she had kept in her heart all her life, and no one would know it. But now, what's the matter with this text message? Su Qingying looked at the text message. Her expression changed drastically for a few seconds, and then she turned her head abruptly. Looking outside the windshield of the car, she knew that it was the man who was driving the Lamborghini and smiling at her just now. She didn't know who that person was, and she didn't know how that person knew her mobile phone number, let alone how the other party knew that she was, when is the bright moon, in the forum. This was the scariest part. The only thing she could be sure of now was that it must be the text message from the man just now. Because it was mentioned in the text message, "The first time I saw you in person, you are much more beautiful than the news." The other party seemed to know her secret, and seemed to know her very well, even her mobile phone number. She didn't know anything about him. Su Qingying was terrified in her heart. She understood that if this matter was publicized, even though she hadn't done anything and just said something on the internet, it would be enough to ruin her. At least in terms of reputation, it would bring her a devastating blow. "Qingying, what's the matter with you? What are you looking at?" It wasn't just Su Qingying who was sitting in the back row, there was also a very fat middle-aged man sitting on the left. He was a little too fat, and he looked like Maitreya Buddha sitting there. Fortunately, the car was spacious, and Su Qingying was thin, so they didn't squeeze together. This man was about 50 years old and called Su Qingying, Qingying, but he was not Su Qingying's father. It's the elder. It was Su Ruiwen's right-hand man, Tang DeYoung, senior vice president of Jinfu Group, president of the sales department, and the fourth largest shareholder of Jinfu Group. Tang DeYoung was one of the first brothers who went to work together with Su Ruiwen. They went to Myanmar together in the early years and experienced many winds and rains. They were life and death friends. Tang DeYoung watched Su Qingying be born and grow up. So although there was no blood relationship, the two were very close. Su Ruiwen went to the capital for a meeting. The itinerary was already scheduled, and the plane was yesterday afternoon, so Tang DeYoung accompanied Su Qingying to attend today's media meeting. "Ah, no, it's nothing." Su Qingying turned around and concealed her emotions. She didn't see the Lamborghini following. "No matter what it is, put it aside first. You have to perform well this time. This robbery has caused a sensation all over the country. There are many foreign journalists in today's media meeting. If you can handle it well, you may be able to turn a bad thing into a good thing. There will be a positive publicity for you personally. Let them all know that the successor of our Jinfu Group have the ability to deal with emergencies," Tang DeYoung muttered. "Second uncle, yes," Su Qingying replied. "Your dad and I are both old, and I'm not in good health. Maybe I have to go ahead of your dad. The group will count on you in the future. You have to live up to it." Tang DeYoung sighed again. "He's breathing unnaturally because he's so fat." "Okay, second uncle, you have time to lose weight. Don't talk about frustration." Su Qingying pretended to read the manuscript and replied. In fact, she couldn't read the manuscript at all. Her mind couldn't help thinking about that text message. She was born with a halo, and she had been placed with high hopes since she was a child. The more so, the more afraid she was. A few minutes later, Su Qingying, who was reading the manuscript, picked up the phone naturally, and quickly replied to the message as if thinking of something. Sending it to Wu Chen. Content: Who are you? Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Chapter 58. The network established by relying on others is unreliable after all. Wu Chen, who was driving home, heard the phone ringing, picked it up, and then smiled. He knew that if he did this to Li Ruobing when he didn't know Li Ruobing, then Li Ruobing would definitely not reply to his text messages, but would directly ask her subordinates to investigate the owner of the phone number and ask for all the information. Su Qingying replied the text message directly. Because the two are two completely different women. Apart from being beautiful and capable of running a business, there was nothing else in common. Li Ruobing was the kind of woman who dared to provoke. She could do anything. Want to threaten her? Dream on. But Su Qingying was different. The halo on her body was too heavy. Wu Chen could imagine Su Qingying's panic after receiving the text message, and it was expected that she would reply to the text message. However, Wu Chen did not intend to threaten her. Wu Chen never used any threatening or coercive methods to force women to submit to him. He still had a limit, and it was because of this limit that he did not fall into the devil's way. He did not go crazy, which would result in the destruction in reincarnation. If he really used coercion, it's too easy to get any woman. Anyway, there was no need to bear the consequences, reincarnation would reset everything. But what's the point? Wu Chen committed suicide hundreds of times in the Millennium Reincarnation because of his boring and meaningless life. What he hated the most was boredom. He loved a challenge. The higher the difficulty of a woman, the more he liked to challenge. Because when investigating a person, he could really pass the boring time. Wu Chen looked at the phone screen with a smile, drove with one hand on the steering wheel, raised his eyes to pay attention to the road conditions, and quickly tapped the screen with one hand to type. He could also type blindly. And very fast. Sent. The content was, Ms. Su, I have no malicious intentions. I will not reveal your affairs. Please rest assured. Do not reply. The content was to make Su Qingying feel at ease, but how Su Qingying understood it was her business. Wu Chen did not plan to continue communicating with Su Qingying today. Because the time was not right, the opportunity was not right. He deduced that Su Qingying must have important things to do today, so it was impossible to meet with her in private to discuss in detail, and if they only communicated by text message, it didn't make much sense. Wu Chen himself didn't have enough time today, though there was still half a day left. Anyway, there was no possibility of getting any results today. He wouldn't waste the rest of the day. Sending this text message today was an introduction. Wu Chen knew that Su Qingying would definitely investigate him in the future, check him information thoroughly, and then, she should take the initiative to ask him to negotiate. Thump. Wu Chen received another text message. It was still from Su Qingying. Wu Chen even said not to reply, but she didn't listen. Wu Chen looked at the text message. Content. Who the hell are you? Wu Chen didn't reply to her. Thump. Another text message came. It was still Su Qingying. Content. How do you know my phone number? Who told you that? What does the bright moon mean? This time Su Qingying not only questioned Wu Chen, but also wanted to make up for it. Deliberately asking what was up with the bright moon, pretending not to know anything. Wu Chen still didn't reply to her. The fourth text message came soon. This time the content was simple. 3 question marks. Without an answer, she would continue to worry. Su Qingying finally stopped texting. But Wu Chen could guess her mood at the moment and what she would do in the future. Wu Chen waited for her to take the initiative to ask him. At that time, the good show would officially begin. It was estimated that it would not take a few days. After more than 10 minutes, Wu Chen still had a long way to go home. While driving, he picked up his cell phone and dialed a number. It went through. Brother-in-law. Li Ruotai spoke first when the other party got connected. Why did you call me suddenly? Ha 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 ha. Are you checking me? Wu Chen asked casually. No, brother-in-law, what are you talking about? How can I investigate you? Am I that kind of person? You helped me so much yesterday. I could only get through this crisis safely depends on you. Really? Then how do you know it's my phone number? You immediately called me brother-in-law. Have I called you before? When did you save my number? Wu Chen asked. I asked my sister, Li Ruotai responded quickly. Really? Wu Chen said, really, and then asked, then how do you know about my playing games today? Did you send someone to follow me? And then, you reported to your sister. This was the point. Wu Chen created a feeling that Li Ruobing would tell him everything, and it depended on how he explained it. On the one hand, it was to let Li Ruotai understand that the relationship between the elder sister and brother-in-law was really good, and they could tell each other anything. On the other hand, Wu Chen knew that Li Ruotai would definitely investigate him, so he had to let Li Ruotai understand that he knew he was investigating him. It's impossible for Li Ruotai to find out anything, but the more this was the case, the more mysterious Wu Chen's background would feel. The background would be sky high. When dealing with different people, Wu Chen naturally used different thoughts. For Li Ruobing, Wu Chen's thinking was very simple, because he would make Li Ruobing his own woman in the end. But Li Ruotai was very special, because the starting point of Wu Chen's new life was Li Ruobing. As a result, the reason why Wu Chen had status on Li Ruotai's side now was more because he was Li Ruotai's brother-in-law, the man his sister liked, rather than how capable he was. Here's the problem. It was a very fragile relationship. Not to mention what big problems Wu Chen had with Li Ruobing in the future, but just say that there was a quarrel and Li Ruobing was so angry that she cried. With Li Ruotai's character of protecting his sister, he probably would directly turn against Wu Chen. Wu Chen would not let this kind of thing happen. He wanted to separate himself from Li Ruobing in Li Ruotai's heart. He wanted to let Li Ruotai respect him, not because he was his brother-in-law, but because of his awesome character. He hoped that one day in the future, when he really quarreled with Li Ruobing, Li Ruotai would come to both ends of the fight, and even persuade his sister to give in and apologize instead of turning against him. The relationship established by relying on others was not reliable after all. He had to establish one himself. Wu Chen suddenly wanted to make this call. Another advantage was to see if Wang Zhuangyuan was lying. In this case, it was too late for Li Ruotai to clear up the responsibility. If the actual situation was in his favor, then he would definitely say the actual situation. No, brother-in-law, I didn't report you, and I didn't investigate you. It's Guaizi. Zhao Guaizi suddenly called me and told me that Zhuangyuan had transferred many people. I called him and he said it was you. Li Ruotai said. It was consistent with what Wang Zhuangyuan said. Well, that's all right. I'll hang up. Wu Chen said. Don, wait a minute, brother-in-law. Li Ruotai's voice suddenly became much louder. Huh, what's the matter? Wu Chen asked. Brother-in-law, do you have time? Why don't you come to my place? Li Ruotai seemed to have thought of something suddenly. Are you in a hurry? Wu Chen frowned. At this moment, what could happen to Li Ruotai? Chapter 59. A 100 million villa, give it away as soon as you say it. Actually, it's not an urgent matter. If my brother-in-law doesn't have time, I can talk about it another day. If you have time, I will come. Li Ruotai's attitude was very strange, as if he had suddenly thought of something that had to be said, but it was not an urgent matter. I do have time, Wu Chen said casually and thought for a moment. Are you in the clubhouse? The neighborhood near the hospital. I'll rush over there now. We'll meet at the door. Okay, Wu Chen said simply. Anyway, he was free. He was planning to go home and exercise. Wu Chen knew that the full name of the community was Zunrong Donghai Wafu, which was a high-end villa community developed and constructed in Donghai 5 years ago by Zunrong Group, a top 10 real estate company in China. Although Zunrong Group could only be regarded as the top 10 in China, this group was very unique. It only developed high-end residential areas and had a very good reputation. Of course, the houses were also expensive. The most important thing for rich people was money, face, status, taste, and safety. Therefore, Donghai Wafu had not gone through the pre-sale, and all 66 villas in the community had been pre-ordered. As far as Wu Chen knew, Li Ruotai owned a villa in Wafu. U-turn at the intersection ahead. Wu Chen drove the Lamborghini towards Donghai Wafu. Half an hour later, Wu Chen arrived outside the main entrance of Donghai Wafu on Qinghai Road in Baikeng District. The car stopped on the side of the road. Wu Chen didn't get out of the car because he knew that Li Ruotai hadn't arrived yet. The car came from the Crown Entertainment Club. Maybe 10 more minutes. After more than 10 minutes, a black Rolls-Royce appeared at the intersection, drove over and parked directly next to the blue Lamborghini. Li Ruotai in the car lowered the rear window, motioned to Wu Chen, and said, "Brother-in-law, let's go in." He knew that Wu Chen was driving a blue Lamborghini now. Wang Zhuangyuan had told him, of course. There was no need to ask about this. Li Ruotai called Wang Zhuangyuan today. However, Wang Zhuangyuan used other reasons to send the car, and he would never say that he apologized for following him. On the night of the 7th, Wu Chen stole Wang Zhuangyuan's car. Wang Zhuangyuan sent people all over the city to search for the car, and even found the car. They tracked down the car. It's not unreasonable to send the car because of this apology. Of course, it was impossible for Li Ruotai not to guess Wang Zhuangyuan's careful thoughts. He knew well that Wang Zhuangyuan wanted to curry favor with his brother-in-law. Rolls-Royce and Lamborghini entered the community one after another. The security here was very strict, but Li Ruotai had a house here, and the security guards could recognize his car. Anyone who lived here was either rich or high profile, so they dared not be sloppy. They went down to the basement and parked the car. Through the underground garage, you can directly reach the basement floor of Villa number 36 purchased by Li Ruotai. There was an elevator in the villa. They could take the elevator upstairs or take the stairs. Li Ruotai didn't let the bodyguard follow him, so he and Wu Chen entered the villa and went upstairs together. The lobby on the first floor was decorated with incomparable luxury and exquisiteness. It was European-style decoration, but it was not like the Crown Entertainment Club. The decoration was resplendent and magnificent. That style was a bit hard to describe. It was really full of the aura of nouveau riche. It eventually get boring after looking at it too much. The clubhouse was used for business, and the first impression was very important, so it was well decorated. As for the decoration style of this villa, it could be said that the control was just right, luxurious but exquisite. There were many decorations that looked very stylish, and the design fee was estimated to start at 7 figures. Wu Chen saw a piano in the spacious and huge hall on the first floor. Li Ruotai couldn't play the piano at all. This guy still couldn't change his pretentious habit. "Tell me, what's the matter?" Wu Chen looked up casually, asked something, and sat on the sofa. He looked at this house a few more times, because he had never been here before. In the 1,000 years of reincarnation, he had never been in this house. He knew of the existence of this suite, but he never came here. To be precise, he had never entered the house, but he had visited this neighborhood frequently for a while when he was investigating other people. He hadn't been here because this was just one of Li Ruotai's many houses in Donghai. This villa was only bought 3 years ago, and then it was renovated intermittently for more than a year. It was not until the beginning of this year that the renovation was completed. But after half a year, Li Ruotai had not officially moved here. It might be because it is too far away from the Crown Club. It took more than 40 minutes by car, and it was not convenient to go back and forth every day. Because this was just Li Ruotai's house, but he didn't live here. Naturally, Wu Chen had no reason to come and see what was going on in this house. "This house is nice, isn't it?" "How is it?" Li Ruotai sat opposite Wu Chen, took out a cigarette habitually while speaking, threw one to Wu Chen, then put another in his mouth, and gestured before lighting the cigarette. "I spent a lot of money on this decoration, and I even went to Europe to hire a designer." "Don't smoke." Wu Chen didn't answer him, but gesture. "I can't smell smoke on me. Once your sister smells it, she will feel uncomfortable." Click. Li Ruotai pressed down the lighter, and after Wu Chen finished speaking, he raised his hand again, thought for a while, and put down the lighter. What Wu Chen said didn't mean that he was afraid of Li Ruobing. Instead, pregnant. Wu Chen had a very good memory, so naturally he would not forget that Li Ruobing pretended to be pregnant on the spur of the moment. Pregnant women really couldn't smell smoke. "No smoking, no smoking," Li Ruotai said, took down the cigarette, and threw it on the table. "The house is not bad, but the decoration is very tasteful," Wu Chen said, then glanced at the piano in the hall, looked at Li Ruotai and said, "Oh yay, why do you always like to have a piano in your house? You don't know how to play. My elder sister really tells you everything, brother-in-law." Li Ruotai smiled, and there was something in his words. "She always talks about you." Wu Chen smiled. "Although she always fights with you, she really cares about you and is worried that something will happen to you." "That's normal, we are brothers and sisters," Li Ruotai said. Then, he raised his hand to signal again. "Brother-in-law, why don't we go upstairs and downstairs?" "Huh?" Wu Chen asked. "Let's take a look. What's there to see?" "Let me just say briefly, I ordered this house 5 years ago, handed over the house 3 years ago, and renovated it for more than a year. I have never lived in it. Someone cleans it regularly. Li Ruotai continued talking. There are 3 floors above ground and 1 floor underground. There are 4 floors in total. There are a total usable area of more than 600 square meters, and there are yards in front and back. When I bought it 5 years ago, it was much cheaper than now, less than 70 million. It has risen a bit over the years, and if the decoration is included, if this apartment is sold now, it will cost 100 million. What do you mean? Wu Chen asked with a slight frown. Show off. Li Ruotai might show off to other people, but to himself, his brother-in-law, he would not show off without knowing what background he had. That would be easy to be looked down upon. Isn't it interesting? Li Ruotai smiled, took out the key from his pocket, put it on the tea table and slid it towards Wu Chen, and then said, "I'll give it to brother-in-law as thanks for helping me yesterday." Thank you very much. Property rights and other documents are all in the car. Did brother-in-law bring his ID card? Let's transfer the title now. Li Ruotai gave away the 100 million villa as soon as he said it. Chapter 60. Life is wonderful. Give me the house. Wu Chen smiled, not surprised. He was just plain, I help you because of your sister, not because of your house. So, there's no need to repay me. Brother-in-law, I know that. Li Ruotai said, since you are my brother-in-law and we are a family. Brothers have to settle accounts clearly, don't you think? Brother-in-law, if you weren't there yesterday, I'm afraid I'll have to lose a few 100 million. In fact, this is nothing. The main reason is that if it wasn't for your brother-in-law, I would have been kept in the dark, and I might suddenly get in someday. Let's talk about the casino. You not only helped me get back the principal, but also 130 million won. This house is only 100 million. I still gave less. As Li Ruotai was talking, he changed his voice again. Actually, I am also planning for your future, brother-in-law. For my future? Wu Chen asked back. Yes. Li Ruotai nodded, and said again, brother-in-law, tell me, although you and my sister are not married yet, my sister is pregnant, and it will be a matter of time before you get married. But brother-in-law, you are still living in the old house, right? I know, brother-in-law. You have always been low-key and capable, but you don't make it public. Li Ruotai praised Wu Chen a bit and continued, but, my sister will marry you in the future, so you can't live in the old house, right? What will happen when it gets out? It will make outsiders look down on you, brother-in-law. If you live in my sister's house, outsiders will talk more. I know that you may not care about outsiders' evaluations, but, after all, it's not good. Li Ruotai really didn't think about the consequences when he was impulsive. But most of the time, he was very intelligent and very talkative. He could make people believe him. So, brother-in-law, you must have a decent house, at least one. Li Ruotai said again, this is not only for you, brother-in-law, but also for my sister. I'm giving you your wedding gift in advance. Li Ruotai knew that Li Ruobing swore not to get married. Even if she chose a man, she might not marry him. She could only maintain a relationship forever. So he only said that to look for enough reason to give the house to Wu Chen. Li Ruotai had considered this matter carefully. He mentioned that Wu Chen helped him. It could even be said that he saved him, so he had to give back. Although he knew that there was something wrong with Wu Chen, but Wu Chen was a life-saving grace to him. After that, he thought repeatedly, should he send money directly? It's too vulgar to give money directly. Li Ruotai also knew his situation, and Wu Chen was the man of his elder sister. It's just plain wrong. If Wu Chen was implicated, the elder sister might be implicated. Giving money directly would also have a weird feeling. It's as if Wu Chen helped his brother-in-law for the sake of his elder sister, but his brother-in-law didn't treat Wu Chen as his own. After thinking about it, Li Ruotai decided to give Wu Chen the villa he had left unused in the East China Sea. The reason was also very good. The biggest advantage of gifting a house was that the house was a fixed asset. If he gave money to Wu Chen, and Wu Chen spent some money on his elder sister, there would be entanglements. But the house sure didn't. It was him, Li Ruotai, who unilaterally gave it to Wu Chen. In addition, this suite was actually Li Ruotai's best suite in the East China Sea. It was a garden-style villa. He spent more than 10 million yuan just to decorate this suite. The reason why he was so willing to give it to Wu Chen was because he didn't plan to move here. According to his original plan, he would move here before the end of this year. But Wu Chen's appearance made him aware of his crisis. He decided to keep a low profile after setting fire to the Crown Club, and he might even leave Donghai for a while to avoid the limelight, so there was no need to come and live in this suite. Fine, you are quite considerate of your sister, Wu Chen agreed to accept the house. Wu Chen wouldn't take things from people easily, that's called being favored by others. But there were some that should be collected or have to be collected. Wu Chen could guess some of Li Ruotai's thoughts. And he understood that if he didn't accept this suite, it would make Li Ruotai uneasy. One could not be without desires. Wanting nothing could give people a feeling of insecurity. It would make people think that you have bigger plans. That's why Wu Chen showed Li Ruobing that he loved money, so he had to accept this apartment. In the next 10 minutes, Li Ruotai took Wu Chen upstairs and downstairs. The house was about to be transferred to Wu Chen, so he had to take a look. After that, the two left Donghai Wufu. They went to the housing authority to transfer ownership. For transactions that did not involve loans, the transfer was very fast, and the taxes and fees incurred were all paid by Li Ruotai's card. If this villa was under Wu Chen's name, Wu Chen wouldn't be allowed to pay a penny. After leaving the Housing Management Bureau, the two separated. It was already past 4 in the afternoon. Li Ruotai had to go back to the club. Wu Chen went home, back to the old house, put 9JG aside the exercise for now. He had to move. He immediately moved in. He was just going to enjoy it. There was no need to move the furniture, as they were already made in the villa, so he could really move in with his bags. However, his daily necessities and clothes must be moved there. But since there were not many, it was not troublesome. In 10 o'clock at night, Donghai Wufu, in Villa No. 36. Basement level, fitness room. Wu Chen sat on the dumbbell bench covered in sweat, put down the dumbbells in his hands, laid back, and panted heavily. After moving here, he used the few hours before going to bed to fully exercise. Wu Chen raised his head and panted heavily, and the corners of his mouth gradually turned into a smile. He thought of the things that happened in the 2 days of his new life. Just 2 days. He didn't do any business, didn't try to make money, just met some people, said some words, and helped a little. It's just like this, but someone gave him an 8 million sports car, and someone gave him a 100 million house. Life was wonderful. New day, July 10, 2020. At around 7:30 in the morning, Li Ruobing came to the company early and held a senior management meeting. It's not time for work. But Li Ruobing said during the meeting yesterday to mobilize all the power of the company and find a spokesperson. Early tomorrow morning, all executives would come to the company, hold an early meeting, and report the progress to her. Li Ruobing was really annoyed to death by this matter. She was so angry yesterday that she even called Ding Ruolong at noon and scolded Ding Ruolong's family. However, Ding Ruolong had a complacent tone of, "If you can't do it, stop making trouble." She continued to scold, and he didn't answer back, which was even more annoying. When Li Ruobing thought that she might marry such a man in the future, she felt sick and wanted to vomit. The meeting continued until after 8 o'clock. The elevator entrance on the 31st floor of Tower 7 of the CBD. The elevator door opened, and the property manager of the office building personally accompanied a mysteriously dressed woman out of the elevator. This woman was dressed gorgeously and delicately, wearing a big sun hat, sunglasses covering half of her face, and a black mask, as if she was afraid of being recognized by others. Behind her were 2 men who looked like assistants and bodyguards. "Miss Dao, please." The property manager was very polite, indicating that the reception desk of the Symphony Company was on the left side of the elevator, and then led the way. Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audio Wave to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.